is 6:02 on Wednesday, November 5th. Can we get a roll call, please?
Director Morrell?
Here.
Director Randall?
Here.
Director Bender?
Here.
Vice President Laliotis?
Here.
President Finn?
Here. Very good, we are all here. The pledge, next on our agenda. Director Morrell, would you like to lead us this evening? Sure.
Ready, begin. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Brian, do we have any changes to the agenda this evening?
There are no changes this evening.
Thank you. Item number 5, public comment. So this is time that is set aside for the public to address the board on any matter that is not on the agenda tonight. Testimony related to agendized items should be addressed at the time that item is being considered. Is there any public comment on things not on the agenda tonight? Okay, seeing none. We're moving on to director updates. I'm going to start to my right this time.
All
I
right.
never go right.
It's good to be back.
Welcome back.
Thank you. That's it.
That's it, perfect.
I got nothing.
Okay, let's turn it in the other direction.
I just want to say thanks to all the crews out there working on Northwoods. I'm seeing all the steel poles starting to go up and the infrastructure associated with them, and it looks just impressive operation going on. So thanks to everyone working hard out there.
Thank you.
Perfect. I'm going to piggyback on that. I actually stopped and introduced myself to the line crews who are working there, and they really liked that, by the way, when directors stop and chit-chat and are interested in what they're doing. And yeah, and I enjoyed talking with them, and they were really helpful and friendly and inquisitive, kind of like what we were doing at the board level. I was interested in what they were doing on the ground level, and so it was a really nice exchange, actually. So yeah, they're doing good work there. There's lots of interest within the Tower Donner community of that project. So that's good stuff happening out there in the neighborhood. Also, I understand we have new chairs up here. Thank you for that. I feel a lot taller, and I like that. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Morrell. I also don't really have a comment. Just thanks for everybody for showing up and bringing your best selves tonight. We appreciate it. That rolls us right into department updates. Item number 7. Best part of the night.
Good evening, President Finn, members of the board. I have the opportunity to present for the water department. We're going to start off with the graphic that we're very familiar with. We keep showing month after month. And we'd like to start off by just talking about the September. When we look at September of 24 versus that of September of 25, we see about a 4% reduction. And then if we do that running 3-year average of the Septembers, we see about a 7% reduction in the water that is being produced. But now that we have enough months up there, 9 months up there, I'd like to kind of start looking more at a holistic approach, because this is going to be a little bit different. Sometimes I'll talk about a water year. This is going to be based off of a calendar year, the conservation way of life. So now that we're able to look at January through September, 25 versus that of 24, and then the 3-year average, the same thing that we're used to reporting on a month-to-month basis, we're able to report that we're about 2% below when we compare 24 to that of 25. Just to kind of pull your minds back to when we've talked about conservation, a way of life in the past, we need a 1% reduction if we do not hit our goals. So these are actually good numbers, even though they're kind of small, and some people might think, well, 2%, that's not that much. If we look at a running 3-year average, we're about 5% below. So if we take the last 3 years and then compare it to that of 25, we're about 5% below in the amount of water being produced. I go to this next. Before we move into the capital improvement updates, I'd like to highlight a few leaks that we've seen recently and talk for just a split second about these leaks. I'm going to start off on the picture on the right. We can see right here, this silver piece that you're seeing right here is a repair clamp. But if you notice, the leak is right above it, meaning these people have been here before. They've gone out and tried to fix this on more than one occasion. And it's not that they aren't fixing it, it's that we get new leaks as time keeps coming. A question that was recently posed to me was, well, why don't we just replace that pipe? Let's just replace it. If it's old and it's reaching the end of its useful life, why aren't we just replacing it? And the question or the answer that we had to give them was there's not enough resources. We don't have enough to replace all of that aging pipe. But I would like to quickly call out the water crews that have been out there, the distribution guys specifically, let me get the correct word there, of the work that they have been doing and going back, and they're doing the best with what they have. This current piece of pipe that you're seeing, both of them are slated for about 3 years from now, they'll be replaced as part of that capital improvement plan that was pushed forward. We'll transition into a little bit of what are some of the different departments within the water group doing right now. I'd like to talk briefly about the operations crew. Come on through. The operations crew, or during the summer months, if we say it's 100% of the water that we're producing. When we compare that to the winter months, we only produce about 25 to 30% of the demand that is required during the summer months. So with that much lower demand, we don't need all the wells that we have. So we take several of the wells offline throughout the winter, but they need to be winterized in a manner that, one, they're not going to freeze or break or have different issues there. Two, they might need to be brought back online, because if we have another well that has issues or something of that nature, we need to bring these back online at a fairly quick pace. So one of the operations that come every fall is start winterizing these stations, making sure that we're able to bring them back online in a quick manner, but at the same time, the focus and the attention to detail that they need to do as they're doing this is quite impressive. So another group within the water department, the operations group, they're doing a great job. We're going to transition into the capital improvement updates that we have, and I'm going to talk about 2 different wells today. The first one I'm going to talk about is the well 20 rehab. So this is an item on the agenda tonight, but I just felt like it was important to show one of the pieces of the casing that is in this left picture that we see right here. We can see that the threads near the top of this are missing. They're completely gone. And when we started seeing this, we had a lot of concern. To kind of put this in perspective, this will be about 600 feet down the hole with a 150 horse motor on the end of that and pump. So there's a lot of weight that'll be supported off of this. And so as soon as we started seeing these threads that way, we felt like it was very critical to get this before the board and respond to this in a timely manner. The next well that we'll talk about is Hirschdale well, which is currently being rehabbed. That was brought back to the board last month regarding the plugged screens, or the perforations, excuse me. And the treatment will start on Monday. We'll be going out and doing the acid treatment. A question that was brought to us by one of the residents out there is this safe to be putting down a well? And absolutely it is. It's a citric-based acid. It is NSF 60 approved, so it is designed for this application. The other question that they had with the customer I was talking with was, what do you do with all the biofilms and the stuff that comes out of this afterwards? And you got this acidic water, what are you doing with it? It'll all be trucked off to a retention basin, so none of it's going to be put there on the ground, or we're not going to hurt the environment in any way. So we're doing a very good job moving forward with trying to protect that. The last piece I would like to talk about tonight is the training that we recently had. So within the water department, we have a lot of pumps and motors and different electric equipment, as well as other equipment that operates under pressure. So we were able to perform our lockout trainout, which is extremely critical for the water department, to know how to safely de-energize and make equipment safe so that they can work on it. So annually we go through a training. I would like to thank Mr. Botten and Ms. Stewart for putting this training on for us. We were able to do it in-house, which was really nice. And again, the level of professionalism that we have in the water department is quite impressive. Thank you.
Good evening, President Finn, members of the board. Mike Swanson reporting out for Electric Engineering and Operations. Okay, so I didn't report out last month, didn't have a department update, and we did go last month without a significant outage. And we almost made it this month, or October, without a significant outage. We made it to October 29th. We did have a piece of excavation equipment contact our pole up in Tahoe Donner, impacted 800 customers. When the excavator hit the pole, it broke an insulator, caused it to fall, creating the outage. Crew was able to get out there pretty quick because they were there on Northwoods and restore power safely. All right, the Northwoods project. A lot of work going on there, as a couple of you mentioned. The team is making some great progress out there. They are anticipating to get the covered conductor pulled, 2 different sections. First section on the 18th, and the second section on the 20th. And then they'll continue to set poles, as you've probably seen out there. Those of you that have been by, there's a lot of holes, excavation dug. So the plan is to get as many poles set as before winter sets in and we're not able to get out there to set those poles. Next project is Martis Valley Substation. I've talked about this at several meetings, so we made some great progress. That picture up in the upper left is probably the last picture I presented to the board. It's the pad was in, all the holes were filled, the asphalt was, temporary asphalt was put in. On October 21st, the switchgear was installed. That's that picture in the middle. It took a 500-ton crane. That crane was huge. The building weighed 93,000 pounds. Little bit of background and history on this project. The planning and design began in 2021 to modernize and upgrade Martis Valley Substation. To date, we've spent roughly $3.5 million, with the remainder of the project, roughly $3 million planned for 2026, which will conclude the project. The project relocates electrical equipment indoors to improve reliability, protect it from weather, wildlife, and enhance employee safety. Older, less reliable equipment is being replaced with modern technology that eliminates the use of SF6 gas, reducing greenhouse gas emissions and associated regulatory requirements using safer vacuum bottles technology. The backup power system batteries will be moved indoors into a climate-controlled environment to improve reliability and year-round operability. Upgraded control and monitoring systems will provide better system visibility and support future remote operations, our SCADA system. Site improvements will strengthen physical infrastructure, enhance security, and support maintenance activities throughout the year without extended outages. And the modernization increases system capacity, prepares the substation for future growth and energy storage integration. And the picture on the right there is our senior engineer, Josh Campbell. This has been his project, and you can, well, its picture's kind of small. You can see the big smile on his face that this step of the project has been successful. So he's pretty proud of this. Our key focus remains on getting that Northwoods project, hardening project, as complete as we possibly can before weather chases us out. Martis Valley Substation rebuild, we want to make sure we are prepared for next year. We have our GO 165 underground inspections remaining this year, which is minimal, but it's a requirement. Engineering is also looking at the system hardening work that we're planning for 26, 27. We have one project near completion and design, which will put us in a great position at the beginning of 2026 to get that 6 miles that we're planning to get done. And of course, we are preparing for those, what Mother Nature brings us this winter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson. Mr. Poncelet.
Good evening, President Finn, members of the board, Stephen Poncelet with Public Information and Strategic Affairs. We have been communicating, as we've done all summer long, about the water rate process, the budget, and the campaign to get the information and education out there. We did do an all-customer email on October 9th. That's a screenshot of what the customers saw when they opened the email, and then as you scroll down, and we took a few of the very common questions and themes we've been seeing in the community and hearing, like how much will my water rate increase? And so for water, that's 6.5% per year is what's being proposed. What's that mean for my bill? Gave them some examples, $7, $8 a month for your typical bill, and then more detail for people who might have pump zones and other things to consider. What happens if these increases are not adopted, is another question that we hear. And with our aging infrastructure and then the cost pressures under the utility industry, a lot of those capital projects and improvements and service reliability and safety projects, get delayed or can't happen. And if they do, they cost more later. So information on that. Through the California Prop 218 process, there is a formal process to protest a rate increase, and we did an all-customer mailer, and there are specific rules to follow for that. And so we've got that information in the mailer, on the web, and in our emails and stuff. How do our rates compare? Well, I'll stop for a second. There's also an objection process, which is different. And so there's also information on what's the difference between the two and what are the rules to follow to do a valid one of each. How do our water rates compare? Always a big question. The average of local water districts is the green bar on the left. Our current and proposed rates are the two shaded blue. Neighboring utilities up there. I should note that North Tahoe and South Tahoe PUD, two that are below us on this chart, do receive property taxes. And that does offset their rate requirements, so that's not 100% an apples to apples. And then I'm not going to read them in www.tdpud.org/rates. We have all these FAQs up there for the variety of questions that we've been getting, and we're really trying to get out there with accurate information and then putting it in a way that's understandable for people. We do use our website as the repository for all that information, and we have seen through our Google Analytics a pretty strong increase in visitation to both the homepage and our rates page. It's small, I'm not going to point to things. That little peak down there at the bottom was almost 1,000 people clicking on the rate page right around the customer email that went out to our 14,000 people. So that would indicate a pretty strong open rate. And then we're seeing how much time they're spending there and following the trends. And so we continue to look at that information. Out in the community, we've been doing print ads with the Sun, Moon, Truckee Magazine, Tahoe Donner News, Shire, print and digital. Communications specialist, Ms. Spihalski and myself have been doing 2 interviews on KTKE and some live reads regarding the rates and the rates process. Your money at work information, we did a combined article with Tahoe Donner that was in Tahoe Donner News and really featured that, and then we've been featuring your money at work campaign throughout the year. Where does your water come from was some of the earlier campaigning and infographic stuff we did earlier this year. And then that graphic on the right is kind of our social media campaign we've got going right now, timing with the upcoming water rate hearing. Also electric, don't want to leave electric behind. We also have information on that. And again, what is the rate increase? And that's proposed at 5% per year average. What's that mean for me? For your average residential customer, it's about $10 a month. How do the electric rates compare? We are on the left in the green ones. We're below the average and kind of in line with sister public-owned utilities, so sister not-for-profit utilities. The 2 on the right that we're lower than are Liberty Utilities and PG&E. our neighboring investor-owned utilities. That's a for-profit model. And I should say that our rate proposed is current to today, to January 1, should it take effect. And there are rate cases pending with CPUC for both Liberty and PG&E that'll change those numbers as well. We are also working on our new electric rates, and you'll hear more about that tonight in the public hearing. The customer generator rate and the commercial electric vehicle charger rate. On the customer generator rate, this is kind of the successor to the rooftop solar rate that were mandated under California Senate Bill 1. Applies to new solar generating accounts effective January 1st. Existing customer solar accounts, there are about 320 of them, are not required to transfer to the new rate. It has a higher monthly fixed customer charge to reflect the fixed cost of the electric distribution system used by both solar and non-solar customers. It incorporates time of use, which is something we've talked a lot about and will continue in both the cost of when customers pull from our system, which is our residential time of use rate, but also the value of the resource when they provide it to us. And we know 4 to 9 p.m. is the critical time. And so the rate does have some incentives that if they can shift load, install batteries, and, and feed the grid 4 to 9, we have a pretty generous rate that we're offering in that situation. Was extensively analyzed based on cost of service and cost of electric resources, and then it was designed to be equitable to all TDPUD customers. On the commercial electric vehicle charger rate, it's based on cost of service analysis, including the load profile of this class of customer. The new rate is needed to address a new class of commercial electric customer that is characterized by unique load profile and high customer demand, as in kilowatts, associated with commercial electric vehicle charging. And so this is non-residential charging. It's the companies and the businesses and agencies that are buying charging and then selling it or giving it to their customers or community. The new rate, again, incorporates time of use to reflect the varying cost of electric resources throughout the day, along with customer impacts to the electric distribution system. It will take effect January 1st, and all commercial electric vehicle charging customers will be transferred to the new rate, and it is not applicable, again, to residential EV chargers. Switching a little bit to other community engagement, we did host a conservation garden event for landscape contractors and nurseries. This is in our kind of first step in taking the years we've been working with the California Making Conservation a California Way of Life regulation, which is the indoor restrictions, outdoor restrictions, and then water loss reduction targets. And while all three are important, and the district is certainly invested in our capital plan and operations to plug those leaks, outdoor irrigation remains the dominant driver of our water system. It's 3 to 4 times the winter demand, and that is driven largely by turf, ornamental turf, as the regulation refers to it. And the state of California has been pretty aggressive about going after ornamental turf. So we're starting early to put together the plans to comply, because it's a law and a regulation and we must comply, but to find a way to work with our community and our customer to do it in a way that, works for everybody. So with the outdoor regulations, obviously the landscape contractors and designers and then the nurseries are at the forefront of that industry. And so we started the conversation with them on, hey, this is coming. Here's how we're thinking about it. By the way, our conservation garden's one of our major tools for outdoor irrigation. Here's some rebates and incentives and ways we think we can work and educate with the customers and community. What do you think? And so we're going to continue that conversation as we go forward. Finally, it was the end of the California legislative session. We are going to bring back to the board early next year through our partners, California Municipal Utilities Association, CMUA, and Northern California Power Association, NCPA, some workshops and briefings to kind of say, hey, here's where we were, here's where we landed, this is good, this isn't so good. But just to give you a flavor, 93 water bills, 231 water energy nexus, and 205 energy bills passed and made it to the governor's office. About 15% of those were vetoed. This breaks out the ones we sponsored, the ones we supported, the ones we didn't. Generally speaking, you know, it was a pretty good year, other than we have hundreds of new things to deal with. And so it takes time for that to all flesh out, but we're going to bring that to the board and community in workshop formats. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ponzele.
Good evening, President Finn, members of the board, Jillian Stewart, Human Resources and Risk Director. We had a very busy October with staff and community events, so I'll be sharing a lot of fun pictures in my update. However, before we get started with that, I'd like to congratulate two promotions we had in the water department. Stefan Youngren was promoted from water service technician to water lead min, and with his promotion, it led to a water service tech opening, which we're happy to report Kenny Johnson was yet another successful promotion out of our seasonal helper position, and he was able to take that permanent water service tech position. So congratulations, Stefan and Kenny. Next up is our core value awards and recognition. Ed Atkins won this month for communication. He's being recognized for his good communication by his fellow coworkers because of a recent minor modification he made in how he delivers information for pole replacements. The prior method had engineering going out into the field, followed by a lot of back and forth between crews and engineering. Ed took it upon himself to start marking maps with the recommended infrastructure placement, making the process much more efficient for engineering and the crews. Katie Arbach was nominated for accountability. Katie is one of the key players in making the district's culture what it is through her participation in Culture Club, Community Committee, helping to write the Connections newsletter, and more. Her coworkers wanted to recognize her accountability to these teams and projects. Katie's always the one taking notes, keeping the plans organized, providing reminders, and holding us to timelines. No one assigned these duties to Katie, but her accountability shines when she takes these tasks on to ensure our success. Thanks, Katie. On to our events. The first week of October is Public Power Week and California Water Professionals Week. This year we took the opportunity to reimagine that week as PUD Appreciation Week. We celebrated by recognizing staff through a variety of fun events, and here's some of the pictures of those. We did a wear your favorite sports team attire, appreciation breakfast, a barbecue and fundraiser for our Charging Communities Forward Fund, which is the completely funded through our employee donations that supports local community programs. We were able to almost double our fundraising goal at that barbecue. We had specialty coffee breaks where some of our staff with barista skills made lattes and cappuccinos and whatnot for staff that wanted those. And our most popular event of the week was our dodgeball game out in Meadow Park behind us. It was really fun for the participants, but maybe even more so for those who just spectated and took the pictures. This is our annual Halloween event that just keeps getting bigger and bigger. So we have costume contests, spooky potluck, and this year we added a department jack-o'-lantern contest that really showed off our team's skills. We held our annual field trip with Truckee Elementary second graders. As years passed, we had students visit stations about conservation. They learned where their water comes from in the water department. And then linemen do a demo on a pole and using the pulleys and giving them lots of candy and sugared up. And this year we added a mock board meeting to decide whether we should paint our power poles pink. And it was a hit for sure this year.
The verdict. Should we pick the pink?
We had two classes said yes, pink, and 2 voted no.
Oh,
So.
no resolution.
Another successful big truck day. We have a group picture there in the middle of our awesome team coming together for our very popular bucket truck rides, photo booth, conservation trivia, dump truck fishing, and more. So another great big truck day. And last but not least is we held a 2-day emergency operations center training. This training continues to build upon the program development and training we've done over the past year with emergency response. This time we got a little more into the weeds. We had built buckets, and as you can see, we have vests that we've added and binders and different toolkits that we brought out to use. And the mock scenario this time was designed around a PPS event here at the district rather than a fictitious event in a make-believe town. So this kind of real-world exercise helped us better prepare for emergency by giving our staff experience and helping us identify areas of improvement in the process in a low-stake environment. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Beautiful.
All right, we don't usually have a GM section of the updates because staff does such a great job of covering all the events here at the PUD over the last month. But I did want to shine some light on a couple of events over the last few weeks. Couple of key engagements the district has. Jillian talked about Big Truck Day, and I'm going to expand on that a little bit more. Just congratulating and thanking the Truckee Downer PUD staff, crews, for participating in what's becoming a major event in Truckee. And the PUD is a major attraction there. And the bucket truck rides, you get to reserve those now when you get there at the beginning of the event and hope your child gets an opportunity to get in we were joking around that you might want to put in budget another bucket truck just for Big Truck Day. But it's a very good event, and I just want to commend our staff. They're really good with the kids. They're really good with the community out there. I had the opportunity to attend and kind of observe walking through as a kind of a patron, and it was really impressive. October 13th, we participated in the UAMPS, Utah Associated Municipal Power Systems. They held their strategic board retreat. And this was really centered around updating their strategic plan. They're going through some restructuring, not in the organization itself, but some of the services they provide, recognizing the changing dynamic in the energy sector and what their membership needs in terms of services. And so things like developing an all requirements program where they became a full service energy service provider with going beyond scheduling, but addressing some of the challenges that we're going to see with the extended day ahead market, the energy imbalance market, and regional operating and balance authorities. So they're thinking strategically the next steps of what their membership will need in terms of services. We have some follow-up meetings in the coming weeks of what that means for the Truckee Downer PUD, and I'll definitely bring those back to the board for consideration. I'm happy to report out, while I can't necessarily give details on specific projects, they are, soliciting and examining additional generation, including carbon-free generation in their portfolio. So Mason and his team are doing a great job thinking in the future, and then this retreat was an opportunity for us to hear a report out and give some feedback. So I'll have more to follow up there. October 17th, staff attended a regulatory compliance planning meeting with NCPA, Scott Tomaszewski, who spoke here a few times on the kind of LNR and regulatory landscape from an NCPA perspective. We met with Scott to talk about the district's regulatory compliance calendar in 26, 27, and making sure that we're strategizing and preparing appropriately. This is really related around RPS goals, energy credits, renewable energy credits, and the reporting compliance requirements. And so making sure we have a grasp on those and planning those for the next 2 calendar years. Mike Salmon mentioned this in a couple of his reports, and I'll talk about it tonight. October 21st, we had a review meeting with Standard & Poor's about our credit adjustment, and just wanted to mention in terms of the updates, thanking staff at multiple levels. Mike spearheaded that, but it was also other members of the staff contributing to make sure that we're getting the information to S&P to have an accurate review and evaluation that's reflective of the work we're actually doing. And a lot of that centered around, as we mentioned, wildfire mitigation, risk mitigation, not necessarily the budget and finances of the district, but the risk in the future, particularly with wildfire, as that's what's most prevalent in everyone's mind with electric utilities, particularly in the West. With that being said, I wanted to take the opportunity to commend staff on their work in that wildfire mitigation. We are required annually to report with an update. The board reviews and approves those reports with the California Wildfire Safety Advisory Board, and that's the agency developed in California to review and evaluate each utility's wildfire mitigation plans. And I want to show this quote here that, two quotes, one from the Wildfire Safety Advisory Board itself. You know, the board commends PUD's commitment to implement a formal preemptive de-energization program aimed at mitigating wildfire risks that will leverage existing expertise and working relationships with partner utilities, identification of additional metrics, number of recorded outage, safety hazards, vegetation management targets, and external risks to support the evaluation of its WMP. And this is really, I wanted to bring this up because this was reflective of staff's commitment to not just checking a box in terms of regulatory compliance, but doing the work to make sure that the safety of the community is the mission. And so we're taking a regulatory requirement and making it a valuable tool for the district. So Stephen Poncelet, the PIO, Strategic Affairs, Mike Swanson, Electric Utility Director, Mike Salmon, Chad Reed, all of our leadership have contributed to this effort, and I want to thank them for that. And then the quote at the bottom, Randy Howard's the general manager of Northern California Power Agency. He is at the tip of the spear in terms of representing public agencies and their efforts to mitigate risk, but also seek support at a regional and national level. He's in DC, he's at the state capitol representing California public utilities and other public utilities in the West, and the risk that's in front of us, the obligations that are in front of us, and the challenges that are in front of us. And so he's commending the district and their efforts in keeping our community safe. So I just wanted to give the board an opportunity, the community opportunity to see that our partners out there are appreciative of our work as well. Finally, Big Truck Day. A lot of the activities are just, every year the kids go to the bucket trucks. They go to the CHP helicopter landing. They go climb the sand hill in the public works yard. They love it out there. What's growing more and more interest is Truckee Honor PUD's Learn or Burn presentation. And so if you haven't had an opportunity as a board member, we'll make sure we schedule that. But Learn or Burn has grown here in this community as a safety presentation. We do it with the high school, junior high, and elementary kids. And this year I got an opportunity to capture on video our longtime lineman and now substation lineman foreman, Shannon Hoyt, who's taken the reins over the last 10 years or so of executing this program. He's got his apprentice there. He's not an apprentice. Forrest Henson is, Heston, I'm sorry, is a journeyman lineman with our crew, but he is the apprentice on this demonstration because he's learning to take over, take the reins on this in the future. So I just wanted to take a little bit of a long clip, but I want to show the board and the community just the engagement of the kids, how we are proactively educating with safety, wires down, energized conductors. In this particular event, they're using hot dogs to represent fingers, and so just give you a little demonstration of what happens there.
House light came on. That's good. So now what Forrest will do is he grab that double hot dog. And so this is high voltage. This electricity. You don't want to touch these wires. It's not good. Those hot dogs are like your fingers. You don't want to touch electricity. Watch the hot dog. That's not good. That's not good. Don't touch the high voltage. Don't touch the wire. Okay? You gotta remember that, right? You gotta spin because you're down to metal. Okay? All right. Here we go. Don't want to touch it. That would not be good. Okay. Yeah, and then if you want to go ahead and go, it might be hot.
A little insight. The kids, you see them enjoying it appropriately. We have a little junior fireman there in the front of that line. So definitely someone in the future. We had a demonstration of future board members with Jillian showing you the exercise, and now we have future linemen and firemen out there. And that's all we have.
Oh, thank you so much. That was a pleasure. Thanks for sharing it with us. All right, monthly updates finished. On to the main event tonight. Item number 8 is our first public hearing, which is, I'll read it first. Consideration to adopt ordinance 2025-02, setting the electric utility rates for fiscal year 26 and 27, including new customer generator rates and new commercial electric vehicle charger rates. I am going to formally open the hearing now. We're in. Welcome.
Good evening, President Finn. As mentioned, this is public hearing and action item number 8, electric rates for fiscal year 26 and 27. The district's electric retail rates are set by the Board of Directors and adopted by ordinance. The rate recommendations have been the result of biannual cost of service analysis, COSA, and rate recommendations prepared by a third-party consultant. Recent historical average rate increases are presented in the grid here for the last 10, 15 years here. And then it's important to note that in 24 and 25 with the 12% and 12%, we also introduced a big part of that reason for those increases so large was our power cost forecast because of what we had experienced. And so we also introduced a power cost adjustment in 2024 that directly relates to the wholesale power costs that we're incurring as compared to budget. It's actually an agenda item later this evening. And it could be a charge, additional charge if our costs are over what budget is, but it's also can be a credit. And as the board is aware, and others hopefully all our customers are aware, that has been primarily a credit since that started in 2024. So the effective average rate is closer to 8% for both of those years. The board at its April 2nd, 2025 meeting approved a contract with HDR Inc., HDR, to prepare a comprehensive electric utility COSA and retail rate design update. HDR has extensive experience in providing financial consulting services, including COSA and rate design services. The purpose of the COSA and rate study is for adoption of cost-based and equitable electric rates, meeting the goals of the local utility and in compliance with state and federal actions. HDR presented the COSA and rate study draft reports at regularly scheduled board meetings on September 3rd, workshop 1, and September 17th, workshop number 2. Highlights of the analysis include O&M, capital, energy cost proportion to rates, evaluation of the customer charge, that's the monthly base charge in the rates, and now analyze each rate category to ensure adequate cost recovery. They reviewed, as Stephen Ponsley mentioned, the customer generator demand and rate options. They also reviewed commercial electric vehicle charger demand and rate options. And they prepared a rate design recommendation for fiscal year 26 and 27, which was reviewed in both workshop 1 and 2. A public hearing regarding the proposed electric utility rates was requested for November 5th, this evening. That was noticed on October 24th and 31st in the Sierra Sun. And our objective tonight is to hold the public hearing and consider the ordinance for adoption by the board. Post both of these workshops, we worked with HDR to incorporate the board feedback they received and other feedback, and HDR is here virtually to present the final draft report. And with that, I'll pause and see if we have virtual participation of Kevin Lorenzo.
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We can barely hear you, Kevin.
Okay, I'll try to speak as loud as I can so that you can hear me nice and well. So
we have your presentation up. Can you see where we're at in the presentation?
I'm just seeing my face at the moment.
All right.
There we are. Okay. So I'll just tell you when to advance the slide, I suppose. So go ahead and advance the slide.
All right.
So some key information for the rate study that we did for the electric utility, some key inputs and other things were like the demand growth. This is essentially the kilowatt hours that is growing and also the number of customers growing. Overall, we are looking at a 1% increase in that demand growth. In the process of doing the cost of service and rate study, we were looking at 2 years of 5% overall rate adjustments. So that's an increase in 5% revenue for the utility as a whole. And beyond that, we're looking at 4% and then followed by inflationary adjustments beyond that. It's one of those things where it's kind of difficult to, look at your crystal ball and determine what costs are going to happen in the future. So we, made our best estimates, but, we're only adopting the 2 years, so we'll see what happens in the future. But, some of the things that could pop up in the future would be, increasing transmission costs, and we had some internal discussions about some changes in the transmission costs that the district will probably be experiencing in the future. And then there was some discussions about the power cost adjustment, and then also some like system hardening type of projects that were done, that are in the CIP that were talked about earlier. And then the 2 new rates that we developed, as it has been stated already a couple times, as the commercial electric vehicle time of use rate, and then the customer generator rate. Next slide. So a quick overview of the cost of service is it's a 3-step process. The first step is the revenue requirement analysis, and this is where we look at the revenue and compared to the utility's expenses over a period of time, and we determine how much of a rate adjustment overall the utility needs to continue operating in a sustainable way. And as we were mentioning before, the 2 years that we're looking at overall, we're looking at a 5%. So the next step is the cost of service analysis. And so this is the process of allocating the cost developed in the revenue requirement and distributing it to the different classes of service. So that would be your residential, your small, medium, and large commercial, and that new EV charging customer class. So distributing the cost that we established in the revenue requirement to those different customers. And the whole point of that is the fair and equitable component that has been mentioned earlier. The idea here is we're trying to establish that the rates that utility payers are paying reflect the cost to provide them service. So the third step in this process is the rate design analysis. And what this does is this takes the information from the revenue requirement and the cost of service and establishes the rates by each customer class or rate tariff, whatever you prefer. And also part of this was developing those 2 new rates for the commercial EV charging and the customer generators. So the idea here is the idea of that is essentially, we're going to figure out how we're going to set those rates, but in total, we want to make sure that we're collecting the right revenue as established in the revenue requirement. So go ahead to the next one. So this is just a simple graphical representation of what the revenue requirement looks like. So this consists of the bars, which are which is the green, the red, and the light blue. Those are the utilities costs. And then we have the dotted black line, which represents the utilities rate revenue if we didn't do anything today. And then the black line represents the rate adjustments that we're proposing today. And so you can see that the costs or the bars, they're rising up to the level of the black line, which represents the proposed rates that we're proposing for this study. And as you can see, as we talked about previously, there's the little box at the bottom showing 2 years of 5%, and then 2 years of 4%, and then 3% thereafter. Next slide. Yep, there we go. So there are a couple of things that we look at when we look at the revenue requirement. One of a very important one is actually determining or making sure that when we set these rates, that we're actually maintaining the reserve levels that the board has set policy-wise. So you can see that we have an operating reserve of 180 days for O&M. That's excluding purchase power. We have capital replacement, an average annual capital expenditures for the capital fund. And then we have a rate reserve, which is 180 days of purchase power. And then we have an unfunded liability reserve target of $2 million. So what this shows is all those different pieces make up the dotted line. And each individual color band that you see on this chart represents the different funds the utility has. So you can see that we're meeting the target fund balance for the utility in this chart. So the cost of service analysis, I kind of went over this already, but the whole idea here is that we're equitably allocating the cost to the different customer classes. And then we're using generally accepted and fair and equitable industry standard practices. And the idea is to avoid subsidies. And we want to make sure that we're tracking costs, compared to revenue and providing an accurate price signal. And so some of the differences in the different customer classes actually represents a little bit of a price to signal, because we want to make sure that the customer classes that impact the utility more, which would mean a higher cost to provide service, that they're receiving the right price signal so that they are aware that they're impacting the system in total. So that's the whole point of that. And then the whole idea here is to make sure that we're determining if subsidies exist, and also establishing average unit costs, which actually help us in the next step of this process, and that's rate design. So overall, we had a number of different customer classes, and these are all ones that have been in place for quite some time. We have permanent residential, non-permanent residential, and then small, medium, and large commercial. And then the new rate that we're looking at is the commercial electric vehicle charging station, and also the customer generator rate. So as a result of the cost of service, we've been seeing that residential costs have been trending a little bit higher, and that'll kind of lead into this next part. If you go to the next slide. Though we're looking at an overall 5% revenue adjustment, we have some slight differences in the rates, the rate adjustments that we're proposing for, each customer class. And, as I just stated and was mentioning in the previous slide, we're seeing that residential customer costs are trending up higher, and there's a number of different reasons for that. And some of that might be that the electrification that's going on, there's an incentive to, for folks to get into the electrification. There's the state mandate with all that, and also at-home vehicle charging. So those things, could be the reason why the costs for residential customers is trending higher than it has in the past. And so that's looking at 6% rate adjustment for this 1 year. The next is the commercials, and as it's kind of like the waterbed effect. If we push down on one rate, the other rate's got to go up so that we collect the total revenue. So correspondingly, if we increase the residential rate because their rates are trending higher, we're also looking to do a lesser increase for the commercial, and you can see that here we're looking at 4% rate adjustments for commercial, small, medium, and large. The commercial electric charging rate, that's a 12% as compared to what they're currently paying, which is primarily the large commercial rate. And, as it's been said previously, they have a pretty big impact on the system. And one thing to bear in mind is, of the total system electrical, like a kilowatt hours, they're roughly 2.3% of the total. But for demand, they're closer to 10%. So you can see that, they have a pretty high impact on the system. And that's one of the drivers of the cost of service is the demand side of things. Okay, going into rate design. So we weren't proposing any significant changes in the rate structure. And when I say rate structure, I mean, the customer charge versus the energy charge. We're not changing the relationship between those two pieces. We're just increasing it at an even level at 6% for 2026 and at 5% for 2027. And you can see the permanent and non-permanent rates here. Next slide. So how does that impact? So, actually this same chart was, shown previously, and what we can see is that, the current rate is under the average and the proposed rate is also under the average. So you're still looking like you're under the average. There are different requirements for, the different utilities and sometimes you have to bear in mind that the cost to provide services could be different for different utilities, but luckily you're on the lower end of the spectrum here. So the time of use rates also similar to. Did I hear something? Oh, okay. Similar to the other residential rates, we're not making any changes in the structural way that they're established. We're just increasing it by 6% and 5% in these 2 years. And that's to reflect the fact that, the demand, on a daily basis hasn't really changed too much. And so there's no reason to really change that. So the commercial rates, again, for 2026, we're increasing those at 4%. And again, we're not really changing the structure in any meaningful way. We're just increasing each individual component by 4%, and then 5% for 2026. Okay, so the new rates, we've talked about this already in this presentation and in previous discussions during today's meeting. There's been some discussion about it. So the commercial time of use EV rate, again, this is a growing impact on the system. Chances are, there are going to be more that are built within the city, within the service area, and that's going to have an impact going forward on the district. So it's important to get ahead of the curve and get this rate in place so that as the demand from this particular customer class increases, you already have that rate in place and it's actually, collecting the right amount of revenue that reflects the cost, the higher cost that they incur on the system. Customer generators, this was also one of those things where we're kind of trying to, we're getting ahead into the process. We've had this rate in the past that we're updating with this particular set of rates. And, as I think Steve mentioned previously, this only applies to any new customers that are going to be customer generators or, solar panel type customers. So it won't affect any of the 300 or so customers that the district currently has. So here is the commercial EV rate. This is a little bit different compared to the previous commercial rate that these customers were in. And that's primarily because while they all are commercial EV charging, there are differences in the size of the different charging stations. So some are small, very few. There's a very few small amount ones, small size ones, and then there are a few medium sized ones, and there are even a couple more that are on the large size. So those where they previously fit, and that's why. Because there's the different size levels, and previously there's always been a difference in the monthly fixed charge, we decided to keep that in place and charge the same fixed charge as we do for the commercial customers. But where we made some changes were on the demand charge side, we increased that amount, that rate to reflect their higher cost of service. And we combined the medium and large demand pieces with it, demand charges that were previously different. We made them the same here because virtually they were very close anyway. So it kind of just made sense to keep it the same. And then we have the time of use schedule that also coincides with the residential time of use, because that's really based on the utilities' daily demand load. So the time of use periods are the same. The rates are different to reflect the costs associated with providing that service to them. So last time, these is a similar slide as we showed the last time, but part of developing the rate for the customer generator was to kind of balance quite a few things. One was, to make sure that any customer that is under this rate schedule is actually paying their fair share of the cost related to providing services to them, and also to try to balance, an incentive or a benefit to someone who actually has, a self-generating system. So, they're not actually being harmed by the fact that they're being charged this particular rate. So this rate was intended to establish, some amount of benefit to those folks who have no battery, and also a greater benefit to those who have a battery. So the chart that we're looking at here kind of represents the usage pattern for a typical customer, or I would call it a Goldilocks customer, because the demand on a daily basis does change based on season. So, in the wintertime, they might have a higher energy usage if they, are using electric heat, but also the day is shorter, so their electrical generation for solar panels is a shorter period of time. So, and in the summertime, it goes the opposite direction, where the day is longer, so there's more time to generate power with the solar panels and also charge batteries. And also that they might be not using as much power, if they're not using any heat at the time. The offsetting side might be if they had air conditioning, but, still. So next slide. So there's a couple different components to this rate structure. There's the fixed charge, and as previously was said, what we did here is we increased the fixed charge, and the premise of this was that we're going to increase that charge to reflect the fixed nature of the utility. So, the utilities, most utilities actually, much of their costs are fixed in nature. I mean, your utility, of your total O&M costs, roughly half of that is energy costs, but there's still a significant component that is going to be there in place whether or not they use the system or not. So it's important that we want to make sure that these customers are paying their fair share for being connected to the system, because that's a benefit to them. The first part is the import time of use rate. And so this is what they're what they're buying power from the district is. And, we're using the same time of use periods as we are in the commercial EV charging, as well as the residential time of use rate structure. And the next part of that is the export. And so that's what the utility is paying them for when they are providing power during different periods of time. And the difference here is that, during that peak period, the buyback for them, or the export charge, is higher during the system peak, so that they're actually receiving a benefit. And this also goes into the use of batteries, and it kind of encourages customers who have self-generation to use batteries, so that during that 4 to 9 p.m. period when the sun's not up, they can actually still either provide energy back to the utility, or at least be able to have battery storage that'll offset their use during that period. So, and there's two rates. There's one for the permanent and one for non-permanent. So the customer generator rate was actually adapted from some work that the district had done and presented to the board a while back. And so we just kind of went in and kind of fix things up and use the cost of service to help establish that the rate is at the right levels. But for the most part, there was it was pretty much similar to what the board had seen prior to us even starting the rate study. So just as kind of an understanding of how this might work for a particular customer. Again, I'm calling it the Goldilocks period of time. So, this would be like not in the middle of summer, not in the middle of winter, but they're able to save some money if they don't have a battery, and if they do have a battery, they're going to save a little bit more money. So you can see at the bottom part of the slide, you can see that, with a solar with no battery, they're going to have a reduction of about $95, and solar with a battery, they're going to have the savings of about $119. So here we are at the public hearing, and the next step is for board approval and the rates to go to effect January 1st, 2026. I'll turn it back over to you guys.
Thank you, Kevin. I got a couple more slides, and then I'll turn it back over to the board.
Okay.
With respect to fiscal impact, the 2026 overall increase is 5%, as Kevin mentioned, and that creates an incremental revenue of $2.12 million, which is required to meet the revenue requirement as discussed. In 27, that 5% equates to 2.25. That's because we're compounding on the 26 increase, as well as customer growth between the 2 years. The revenue requirement that's mentioned, as identified in the COSA, it reflects annual operating costs, the capital expenditures, system hardening and grid modernization, as well as reserve components. And we'll get into that more in the next public hearing. So the recommendation this evening is A and B. And I could read those now or later.
I think we can put it off. The
I'll
reading of
pause.
them. Yeah, we can pause.
I'll
Yeah,
pause
we
and
can
turn it back
pause.
over to President Finn.
Very good, very good. So first I'm going to open it up to the public. Do we have any public input on this presentation? Comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none. Is my mic? Okay, good. Seeing none. Board? First of all, I want to say thank you for all that information. That was a lovely and high-level summary. Believe it or not, that was a summary. We've had a lot of this information in front of us for the past 2 months. And the cost of service study was extensive, and it took a deep dive, and I remember reading through, like, literally costs of this kind of bolt and this kind of hardware, and so they really, it was very granular. The board has had an opportunity to look at all of those areas of expenses, how much it costs us to bring you electricity. So I just want to say once again, thank you for summarizing it for us in that presentation. And with that, do we have any other board comments or questions? No, and no, and no, and no. Okay, okay. In which case, do I close the hearing first? We're going to close the hearing now. Thank you, public. Thank you, board members. Thank you, staff, very much. And I think we can entertain a motion at this moment. Tony?
Make it easy on you. I'll move staff's recommendation as
Oh,
presented.
So beautiful. How about a second?
I'll second that.
Great. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Well, thank you all so much for all the effort that went into this. It is very clearly a heavy lift. Okay. Next item on our agenda, our second public hearing of the evening, is our budget hearing. So item number 9, I think we're going to get the same fantastic presenter for us, Mr. Salmon. You're up again.
Thank you, Kevin, if you're still back on.
Oh, thank you, Kevin. The voice in the sky. It was good.
All right, so we're at agenda item number 9, public hearing and action with regards to budget 2026 and 2027. I thought I changed that heading. Darn it, this is the public hearing.
This is the public hearing.
Sorry about that. But I do have the same components, all 70-plus slides
You know what?
available.
I'm
I
sorry
do
to
not
interrupt.
plan to go through that. Yes,
I
thank you.
didn't open this hearing. I closed the other one, but I don't think I officially opened this one. So I am now opening our public hearing, item number 9, regarding budget fiscal year 2026, 2027, and consideration of adopting Resolution 2025-29, approving the budget for the fiscal year 26 and 27. Sorry about that. We are officially open now. This is the public hearing. We're in it. Great.
Thank you, President Finn. As I was starting to say, I do have all the detail from the previous workshop that I do not plan to go through, but I can pull it up relatively quickly if we need to dive into some detail on a particular matter. I'm going to hit the tips of the waves at a summary level and just kind of not gloss over, but just hit the main points for both electric and water, and then turn it back over to the board in the public hearing process. Okay? So just a refresher, this has been about a 6+ month process, working with all of the staff here at the district, management and directors, and the board. And I want to thank everyone for their participation and patience with me, in particular, in asking a lot of questions and pressing. So we had first workshop on July 16th. We had the second one on August 20th. October 15th, we did the super deep dive. Wasn't that too long ago. And then this evening is a public hearing and action item for review and approval, and we just did the electric rate ordinance. The water rate ordinance is scheduled for the 19th. Changes since the last workshop. We really had one change, and then I needed to effect for that. So insurance costs, the day after the 15th board meeting, I received notice from Aqua JPIA, our insurance broker, through a partnership where we have literally, I think it's over 100 organizations participating, special districts and water agencies and the like, as our insurance broker, but our liability insurance renewed at a very high rate. So that was, I had about a $200,000 adjustment that I needed to wrestle with, and that split about 100,000 electric, 100,000 water. and I balanced the budget by tapping into reserves, just adjusting how much we either were using or funding in reserves, because it's a big amount for insurance, but in the big picture of our budget, it was not massive, and that was the quickest and most efficient way to handle without rippling 85 other documents and scratching my head of where we can get it balanced. So in the big picture of reserves, that's not a massive uptick or downtick either way on a particular year. This is a snapshot graphical representation of 2026 electric budget. Just over a third is capital expenditures, just under a third is operations, purchase power just under a third, and then the smaller boxes are reserves, conservation, which is very important. All of this is important. And then that very small right box is debt service for the electric utility. This is the financial flow, revenues at the top, and then expenses. Net for operating income for 26 is 12 million, just over almost 14 million for 27. Then we have investment income, and then net capital related cash flow is 12.7 million in 26, 14.4 in 2027. The details of that are on the right here. The details of these two figures are right here to the right. And so we have debt service, we have debt service because of capital expenditures. And then the capital expenditures of 18.3 and 26, and which is the larger on the higher end for 1 year for the electric utility. And then 14 million in 2027. And then we're using 6.1 million to balance that cash flow. We're going to draw from a built-up capital reserve that's over $13 million right now. And we plan to use 6 million of that, 6.1 million. And then we funded in 27, we put 700,000 back in. And then, so moving back to the left, the other cash flows, including AB 32 funds to help balance cash flows of 450 in 26, which is the same as 25, and then 27, 400,000. So the net for 26 is 566,000 increase in our operating fund, 190 and 27. Same information, just presented as sources and uses on the left for the electric utility, but you'll see a negative 4.7 million. And so that's drawing down by fund and the change in each fund. And you remember me telling you we used 6.1 million in 26? Well, the net change in capital reserve in 26 is actually a negative 5.7 million. And reason for that is we also have investment income that earns on the cash balance in the capital reserve that offsets the 6.1 that we used. And so by fund in 26, these are the changes. There's the 566 that was on the previous page. Rate reserve goes up 325. Those are the majority of the things. And then the same information change by fund in 27 is here on the right, and that's a net cash positive 691, almost 700,000. And the net for capital reserves in 27 is we almost refund it by about $1 million. But then we turn around and spend 900,000 in vehicle reserves that has built up because of that lead time on vehicles. And we had, so we're hoping to receive and spend the money on some deliveries in 27. Similar information for water. Over half is operations, annual operating costs. A little over a third is capital expenditures in the blue. Debt service is a little over 7%, and then reserve activities are the balance. So the budget, just revenues less operating expenses is about 8 million in 26, 8.1, and then almost 9 million in 2027, but you have a lot of activities after that, in particular capital expenditures. And the net cash flow for capital expenditures in 26 is 6.7 million, and in 27, 7.2. And on the right is the details of that. You have 9.7 budgeted in 26 and 8.9 in 27 in capital expenditures. And we're utilizing capital reserve funds in both years. This is water utilities, sources, and uses. And so the net here for 26 is a negative 2.4. And by component, or sorry, by fund, you can see because we're using capital reserve funds, that's the majority of the change by fund. Oops. I think I can go back. Yeah. And then similarly in a little bit smaller numbers in 27. So fiscal impact to staff recommended adoption of resolution 2025-29 for budget 26 and 27 is a balanced budget consistent with the district's mission, values, strategic plan, goals, and objectives. And so the recommendation is to conduct a public hearing and then adopt resolution 2025-29 approving the budget for fiscal year 26 and 27. With that, I'll turn it back over to the board. President Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Salmon. I'm going to open it up to the public since it is a public hearing. Do we have any questions, comments, concerns from the public? Seeing none. Can I close the public hearing and then the board can, or should I leave the hearing open while we have questions or comments or anything from the board? Let's just leave it open for the minute. Does the board?
We should be consistent, leave it open for board
Let's
discussion,
leave it
close
open.
it for board action.
Perfect. I got there, it just took me a second. Yes, Director Morrell.
On the left. I'd like to actually ask a clarifying question on slide number 6. You can go back to slide number 6. You were talking about the updated insurance costs and that, let me see if I can summarize this correctly, and that you are to accommodate the increased cost in our insurance, we are going into our reserves for that.
I adjusted capital reserves. That's
Capital
correct.
reserves. So my question is, with that adjustment, what capital is being sacrificed, delayed? Anything? Is it earmarked that way?
I didn't
Okay.
change any capital projects in the CIP plan. It's just our balance in our capital reserve. Our bank account for capital reserves is, for electric, is over 13 million. It's right now it's at 4 million and something for water. So that bank account is $100,000 less. The balance in the bank account.
Okay,
So
so
all
it's
I
not
did
tagged
was
to a certain project.
I didn't
like you
change
said.
any particular projects or anything like that.
Okay, great.
Yes.
That's my only question.
Any?
Same area. Is the insurance increase based on Truckee Downer loss ratio, or is it just market value?
The increase was a combination of both. We have experienced claims in liability, and so liability was the main reason for that increase. About half of the increase was claim-driven, so our X-mod for similar workers' comp, but our X-mod for liability, and the other was market conditions as well as just overall exposure for liability.
So in future years with minimal claims, that could potentially go down.
Yes, sir. My understanding is maybe not next year, but soon thereafter.
Thank you. Director Randall? Do we have any other questions or clarifications? Good. Director Laliotis? Okay. I'm going to say the same thing I did after the last presentation, was that this was a high-level summary for the public's information. We have received a lot of information about budget, and we have been able to dig down into every category, and this information is actually probably available to everybody on the website, the actual budget. So if you have questions yourself, please feel free to dig around on our website. It can be a very you can get lost in there for a little while. It's great. So anyhow, I'm going to now close the public hearing. Thank you so much for the time and effort that you all have put into this for us. And I, again, happy to entertain a motion. Yes, Director Morrell.
I just have a comment, and I'm not sure if this comment should have been part of the public hearing. I wasn't quite sure where we were going, but so this is on budget, and we have a hearing on water rates coming up on the 19th. And so I have spoken with Brian about this, and this director feels, I have read 175 protests. Potentially, there are going to be members of our community who are going to come up to the podium on the 19th, and I'm just not quite comfortable approving a budget, including water rates, when I haven't heard from the public. I mean, at that hearing and taking into consideration those comments and then having that discussion based on what we're hearing from the public. So, so this director feels that I want to table the adoption until the 19th, until we can have sort of the full conversation, if you will. And I'm not sure timeline-wise, if that meets deadlines, or I just feel more comfortable of having all the information in before making that final water rate approval, which comes into the budget. And I just wanted to say that, and I'm sorry if that needed to be part of the public hearing.
I think you're fine.
Okay.
I think this is an appropriate
Okay.
moment to bring that up, to bring up your concern.
And I'm not sure how my fellow directors feel about that, but I would like to wait for budget approval until the 19th.
Okay. I'll just lead off that I think that the budget is a living document, and it is not set in stone, and it is changeable all the time as conditions on the ground change. For example, when we had that giant price spike in December and January 23-24, I believe it was, which spurred us to adopt our price, the tool that we use to refund customers money when we have forecasted that we would pay a certain amount for energy and that the actual that we paid came in under budget, for example. So I feel like the budget is a plan for moving forward, and I don't necessarily feel like that we need to put off adopting a plan that is always changeable to wait for the results of the water hearing. I mean, I understand that people are indeed going to come, and we're going to have a discussion about it, and whether we adopt it or whether we don't, we still need this plan in place moving forward, is where I fall on that. We'll make changes to the budget if we have to after that hearing, if we feel like we have to, if we don't adopt those rates.
Mike, what's your time frame on passing the budget? Do you have a particular date it needs to be approved by?
Well, my goal is November 5th. You know, I'm not aware of something that wouldn't, any major consternation. I have a few folks calling me and asking for our budget, approved budget, you know, for regulatory reasons and filings and that kind of thing. But, you know, we're not there to that year yet. So I can't say that delaying for a month or for 15 days or whatever it is would be all that problematic. But you know, my one of the perspectives could be that rates are for water are already adopted. That's what you decided on the 3rd of September, I believe, and then you started a public hearing process for listening and understanding, and you can make budget adjustments going forward as needed.
I want to make a correction there. The water rates have not been adopted. The board has had an opportunity to review the proposed rates.
Sorry.
And
My
has
apologies.
been supportive of those. And so to answer the question out there, not to let me add on to what Mike's saying there, it's a little bit of, you know, you need to understand the revenue streams to support and adopt a budget, and you need to understand the revenue requirements in order to support and adopt a rate. And so they're all happening at about the same time. In terms of the budget, like Mike said, there's a couple of things that we need to have a budget at least approved and adopted by the board so that we can report out. In December, we'll have some annual procurement authorizations that are going to be based on, you know, the report out, the fiscal impact of those annual procurements will be based on the budget that's approved. As Mr. Poncelet pointed out at the very beginning of this board meeting in the updates, is that if the proposed rates, either electric or water, electric has been approved, but if water were not to be approved, we'd have to make adjustments to the assumed revenue streams coming in for water operations and capital expenditures outlined in the budget. We could, throughout the year, with an approved budget this evening, still go through the year understanding that when staff presents an item that is a capital expenditure, in the fiscal impact, we would state that the revenue streams for capital reserves and water aren't what were assumed in the original budget, so we need to make some adjustments here. At the end of the day, if for some manner or reason on November 19th, if the water rate is not approved, staff and the district would need to go back through into the 218 process and repropose a water rate based on the reasons the board or the community rejected those rates. We still need to have an operating budget in place to go into fiscal year 26 and 27. We'll just need to make amendments and adjustments, and we'll do that through the board approval process for procurements, either through leveraging more in capital reserves or curtailing or delaying certain projects. And so that can still happen with an approved budget and an adjustment to the revenue streams there.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I feel like the budget covers more territory than just water rates. I mean, we have a lot of things that we need to continue to move on, and we need to continue to have clear paths forward on. So that's kind of where.
So to follow up on that, but it sounds like approval of the budget on the 19th would still work, meeting all the deadlines in September and January 1. And I think part of my rationale behind this is it seems a little bit of the cart before the horse. So if we approve a budget with rates and people haven't come to speak about that, I think I'm just not as comfortable with that, having all their information and public going through the effort and coming and wanting to be heard, and the board should hear them. So if the 19th is still meeting our timeline and for budget approval, which would be after I don't know the order of the agenda, but after the hearing for water rates, I think that's my request. So if others are willing, and I just think from a public perception, I think that is a good move for us on the board.
So Mike, to clarify, if water rates changed from what's proposed, basically it would only affect capital projects?
Well, that would be an area to be discussed. It could affect operating expenses. We could, typical companies would look at staffing levels. They would look at operating expenses. They would look at capital expenditures, how much they're going to use in reserves if they have any. I mean, you run the gamut. I don't know whether you're talking about, 0.5% or 3% or, those kind of things. So water, as you've seen in the budget presentation workshop, and it's in section 8 of the budget full staff report, water reserves are not robust, right? Capital reserves for water are significantly different than electric. They're at 15 and 20% of target, not 75 or 80 or 100% of target. So capital expenditures would certainly be a top level to look at. Chad's presented multiple times about the aging infrastructure. Over half our infrastructure is over 50 years old. I forget the exact percentage, but so, that's not without risk. IVGID's in the news yesterday, water problem. So anyway, there's a lot to think about there.
I mean, in my opinion, it's okay to disagree. I appreciate that, and I don't agree with waiting. I'm fine. There's an enormous amount of staff effort in this. The public has had many opportunities, and this is the formal public hearing for water rates is coming up in 2 weeks. They get yet another bite of the apple here on making public comment and doing formal protests. 175 out of 14,000, I think the threshold is 50% plus one to really do that. We have been underfunding water for a very long time, and it is my intention to approve this budget that staff has put an enormous amount of effort in and studying. We've had third parties, and I think the budget is in line with the water rates, in line with the electric rates, in line with all the capital improvement projects. So 175 or whatever the protests, I understand. Some people just don't want to see rate increases, period.
We don't have to.
And so
I mean, we could get a chance to talk about this in 2
next
weeks,
time.
like very
So,
specifically,
and I
but
feel
it's
like
just the budget here.
we're not doing a disservice to anyone out there by approving the budget tonight, and that's how I feel. So I'm ready to, correct. Thank you.
I agree with Courtney. I think waiting 2 weeks is not that big a deal based on Mike's comments that we have time. So I'll leave it at that.
We have one director who hasn't weighed in quite
No,
yet.
I mean, this is not abnormal to go down this road of the budget under making an estimate of what the rates are going to be. Obviously, we still have a public hearing to go, and in my opinion, approval of this budget tonight is not in any way indicative of an approval or support of the rates until we get to that public hearing. What staff has discussed is, and as you mentioned, this is a budget plan. If the board comes back and says, no, we want to, change the rates that are proposed, Mike goes back to his desk and comes up with solutions to solve that. I'm not disagreeing with you, Courtney. There is a perception. I think there can be a perception that this is the cart before the horse, but I feel procedurally this is not indicative of approving the rates by approving this budget. I hate to see all of this work that staff has gone through and has been pushing this schedule for the last several months, go to waste on a 3-2 vote, if that's what it comes down to. But I support moving forward with the plan today, the budget plan.
Thank you, Director Laliotis. And I'll, continue on that. We've changed our rates without being involved in a budget cycle, and we've done budget cycles without discussing rates. I mean, it's part of the budget planning process that we do make certain assumptions, and then events change, and the assumptions are inaccurate, but that doesn't mean we don't continue to move forward with our planning process, which we have been doing for 6 months at this point. And just to remind everybody, we originally were going to have the water rates hearing today as well, but we just thought that the schedule was going to be so much, so something had to give, and it was the water hearing, that's all. So it's not, I absolutely agree that we will be listening to and answering the public's questions on the water rates. We are not making any assumptions or undermining that process at all by adopting a budget.
I think I'll just make one final comment, since I'm the one who kind of started this conversation. I haven't really, it's like my issue really isn't about the rate. It's about the process. And we're having a public hearing for our public members to come in and be heard. And so that's the point. And and then to have that dialogue on the board level based on what we're hearing. And so that's really what I'm talking about is a process, not necessarily that the budget numbers are bad. I haven't said anything about that. But I want the opportunity for the public to say, well, you've already voted, so what I have to say doesn't matter. And that's not what that perception, what I want to come from the board here. So that's really what I'm talking about. And I feel that this budget should be 5-0. I mean, I feel everything we do, should be in unison. And I think from a process to have it be a split is it might be kind of silly, but so that's what I'm talking about. And it sounds like we have that time to do that. So, by on the 19th. And so that's the question for, the president and whoever is going to make a motion, if so or not. So that's where this was coming from, was more of a process.
Let me ask a question. Steve, procedurally, if we adopt a resolution contingent upon approval of the rates next week or in 2 weeks, can we make that amendment to staff's recommendation in the motion?
Yes, you could. If you did that, then I would recommend that the public hearing remain closed. If the board's desire or direction was not to take action on the budget tonight, but to defer it until the 19th, then I would recommend that we reopen the public hearing and continue it until the 19th, so that when the public is here for water rates and perhaps the budget, that they have an opportunity to provide comment that becomes part of this public record. But answer to your first question is, yes, you could make that amendment to the resolution and have it contingent.
That just confused me.
Yeah.
So if we made that contingent, do we have to reopen the public hearing here and now?
No.
Okay. There, thank you. It's like
And you wouldn't
continue.
have to reopen the public hearing and continue it to the 19th. But if you're going to continue in action to consider adoption of the budget to the 19th, then you might want to consider keeping the public hearing open to accept public comment as part of that record.
I like that idea, actually, and keeping it open. That gives final voice for the public who are interested in speaking.
Well, they also had the opportunity tonight, and this was also a public hearing that we advertised and that we invited the public to attend, and here we are, and we've spent a lot of time here.
Well, I'm not discounting any time whatsoever that staff has put in. That's not the topic I was raising. So anyway, so I think I've said my concern, and that's fine, and it's okay to disagree. I'm okay with that.
It is okay to disagree, and again, just to reassure the public, the rate hearing is in no way contingent upon this budget approval or not approval. It is a separate conversation. It will be, no matter what the result of the hearing in 2 weeks is, it's not, this is not undermining that hearing. Okay. If we have nothing else to say.
I disagree. I think that it gives a perception that we will approve the water rates, so.
I think perception and reality
Proposed water rates.
are two different things.
Well, let me ask a question, just to
I like
streamline.
the solution-based person here.
Just to streamline this process, is there any appetite to go with the contingency option? No?
Keep the hearing open until the 19th, and closure on the 19th. That's what I'm proposing.
I like to, I think, just sort of keep things focused on one thing at a time. I feel like leaving the budget hearing open for 2 weeks, and it's going to be a really long meeting, just talking about water. It is. And then to add another budget discussion on top of that is, again, that's part of the reason we postponed it, which now I feel might have been a mistake. We should have just done it all tonight. So I'll take some blame for that. I was just trying to chunk things up so they were more digestible. But
You picked the wrong one. No.
ain't that the truth? But I just wanted to give more people a little more time, public, to, again, let them know that that was their opportunity, or is their opportunity to
And I think
to
that's
come and
fine.
discuss. Yeah.
Yep. But I also think waiting 2 weeks is fine too. And I want to commend, before we finish, Mike on all the work. It's fantastic. You did a great job of presenting, but my concern is public perception.
Any other? We got nothing. Okay, we got nothing. We're where we are. Brian, did you want to say something? You have a look on your face that.
I would just, staff can accommodate any of the recommendations or direction from the board. As we said, we can definitely put something on the agenda for December 19th. I'm sorry, no, November 19th. December 19th would be way too late. So, entertaining a motion to move forward and give staff direction would be my
Right.
recommendation.
I mean,
I'm just concerned about lately I always end up with unintended consequences.
mhm.
You just don't think of something, we're all on the spot here, Mike's on the spot here on the stand, and then if we don't approve it tonight, I mean, now we're putting you on the spot. What do you think? I mean, just those unintended consequences. That's just what I don't want to.
Yeah, I'm experiencing
Yeah.
it right now, as a matter of fact.
Right. Oh, yeah, with moving things.
Right,
Yeah.
moving things around a little bit. And the budget, I was going to say something just flew out of my head. But, if we move a budget approval, that we have to listen, not we have to, that is terrible phrasing. That is not
No.
what I meant to say.
So if we continue the public hearing,
Mhm.
table this item until next, for 2 weeks. And my recommendation would be that following the adoption of the water rates, if that happens, that this item is brought forward with 5 minutes of discussion and a resolution for approval.
Is that a motion?
But we're not sure yet. We
Well-
need to know whether it's legal and whether it's, we got the legality part, but just
Do I have to make a motion to table? I guess I do.
If I may, when you use the words table, you invoke Robert's Rules of Order. If we invoke Robert's rules, you have to then make a motion to remove the item from the table at the next meeting. If you want to defer the action, I recommend you simply make a motion that we just defer action tonight. We re-agendize, we continue the public hearing until the 19th and agendize the item for the 19th.
Should
Just
that
leave
be-
tabling out of the motion.
Should that be an emotion or not? Okay.
It doesn't need to be in a formal motion, as long as there's clear direction from a quorum of the board.
Okay, then I will make a motion to keep open the public hearing on the budget until November 19th.
I will second that.
I wasn't quite ready. I have one more thing to say.
Yeah, go ahead. It's, it,
It's
we'll-
not
it-
Time
It's
for
just-
discussion.
yeah, you
It
can have
is,
a
and,
motion
you know,
and a second and
and-
still talk about it.
Exactly. This
Yeah.
is, right,
Totally
lessons
legal.
learned.
Lessons learned.
Well,
We
no,
can talk about it.
discussion on the motion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So just one more under the heading of unintended consequences, and one thing to have a 5-minute board discussion, but at that point, it is on the agenda, and it will be open for public comment. And we will have potentially another 200 people making comment on the budget. So just
Or
putting
not,
it out
or
there.
not. They
Or
just-
not.
yeah,
It's,
yeah.
it's, but you know, here we are tonight, nobody's here, so it's true, they may not be interested in the budget, just the water rates, but, you know, just laying it out there. So, we have a motion and we have a second. Maybe we should have a roll call at this point.
Is that, Steve, does that motion work?
So if that motion were to be passed, then I would recommend that the president reopen the public hearing and then formally continue it until the 19th.
Okay, so that's after we pass.
I mean,
or
it could be
don't
part
pass
of the motion, but it wasn't stated that way, and that's okay. We can accomplish all we need to accomplish with the motion that's on the floor.
Okay. So we have a motion, we have a second. Well, okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. You did it. All opposed? No nays. The motion passes. And at this point, I am reopening our public hearing, budget hearing, item number 9, and it will remain open until November 19th.
We'll continue it until.
We'll continue, yeah, we'll continue it. Okay,
I just want to say thank you.
after the water rates.
Thank you to the board. I know I'm new here, a new director, and I just want to say thank you for being open. I do think perception matters. I have lots of experience in Tahoe Donner about that. Perception does matter, and listening to the public and being considerate and empathetic is a good thing. So thank you to my other directors, and the 19th. So it is a big meeting. So what? I mean, that's our job. So that's what we're here to do.
Okay, that was a good discussion. That was a good discussion. I appreciate everybody's appreciation. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, you bet.
We'll see you again in a couple weeks.
Briefly.
Very briefly. Yeah.
I'll cut it short.
I believe.
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And that brings us to our consent calendar tonight. Do we have any public comment on consent? No public comment on consent. Any directors, questions, comments on consent? Okay, very good. Motion.
I'll move the consent calendar night, items 10 through 13.
I'll second.
Great. All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Hearing no nays, the motion passes. And on to the first of our action items tonight, item number 14, consideration of an appeal to the Board of Directors for award of property damage claim. So, and Mr.
If I may,
Yes,
Madam President, before you begin, I just wanted to let the board know and staff and Mr. Horn know that you have this item agendized as number 14 to hear the appeal. And I believe you'll hear from Mr. Horn and from district staff. You'll have the opportunity to ask questions of both of them. And then at some point this evening, you'll need to deliberate and take action on the appeal. And you'll have the option to deliberate in either open session or closed session. Not knowing what the board's preference might be on that, we've agendized a closed session item under 19, which is exposure to litigation, one case. This is a government claim that we're reviewing, so there is an exposure to litigation. And so after you've had the presentations and you've had your questions answered, you might want to decide, do we want to deliberate in open session and make our decision? Or do we want to deliberate in closed session and then come back out into open session to formally take the action. So you have both of those options available to you. Okay? Questions?
Understood. And we will cross that bridge. when we
Actually, I
get
do have a
there.
question,
Oh,
just on process. It's so, is it decided beforehand whether we're going to deliberate in closed session or open? Do we decide that now?
No, I think you can
Or
wait
on the
until,
spot?
you can do it now, or you could wait until after the presentations and you've asked questions.
To decide if we are
if we'd
deliberate?
like to-
Okay.
Yeah, if we'd like to go
Okay.
to closed session to deliberate further. Okay, I think we're.
Thank you.
Whatever order of events this is going to be, Mr. Horn and Ryan.
So President
Mr.
Finn,
Wright.
President Finn, members of the board, this is action item number 14, consideration of an appeal to the Board of Directors for award of property damage claim. I'll start with a little background and give some background information on this, and then, as Council Gross said, we'll provide an opportunity for Mr. Horn to present materials as well that he's prepared. Would like to say that everything we're presenting tonight was included in the board packet that was provided to the board and the public. This is just an overview of that in presentation form, and then you'll have an opportunity to hear from Mr. Horn. So just a little bit of background, kind of logistics. On April 15th of this year, the district received a claim for damages against the district in the amount of $8,974.92 from Mr. Derek Horn for damages incurred to a residential driveway located at 14280 Glacier View Drive. The cause of damages claimed to be the direct result of excessive water flow through the property and under the driveway due to a water pipeline leak located in the street in close proximity to the driveway and the property during the time frame of January 21st through January 30th of this year, so last January. The claim indicated excessive water flow caused the asphalt driveway to lift up to 2 inches, with the asphalt not completely returning to its original state and cracking of asphalt along the side of the driveway. District staff conducted a preliminary investigation of the damage claim, including inspections of the property and driveway indicated in the claim, review and verification of timelines, and field reports from recent water main leaks in the area of Glacier View, and interviews of staff, water personnel that had performed the water leak. The investigation conducted by water utility staff and risk management resulted in a preliminary determination. This included that there was a water main leak located on Glacier View Drive in proximity to 14280. The damage to the driveway in its entirety was not likely caused directly by the district's water main leak. It was staff's determination at that time in the preliminary investigation the damage was more likely the result of asphalt and soil heaving due to freeze-thaw effects commonly experienced in the area during winter weather conditions. Here's some images of the driveway. These images are taken by staff. There may be additional images discussed by Mr. Horn. These are just pictures, photos taken by staff. Based on the review of the damages in that preliminary investigation, the claim submitted, and that staff issued a denial of the claim on April 19th of this year. On July 29th of this year, Mr. Horn met at the district office with the district's general manager, water utility operations manager, and the risk and compliance program coordinator to appeal the decision of that denied damage claim. At the appeal meeting, Mr. Horn presented photographic and other digital and data-based evidence supporting a claim that damages sustained to the driveway located at 14280 Glacier View Drive were the direct result of the water main leak that occurred in January of 2025. During the appeal discussions and review, staff recognized a couple of physical evidence and photos that were concerning. Driveway, particularly the driveway lifting along one edge of the asphalt. It's highlighted in this photo in the red box there on the left side of the driveway if you're facing the home. The lifting was consistent with damage typically caused by swelling of base materials below the driveway, often referred to as heaving and settling. The district staff, water staff in particular, do a lot of paving work each year at our own facilities in the Tahoe-Donner region. These kind of characteristics and conditions are something everyone on the water staff is very familiar with. It was further recognized through the photo evidence that the driveway located at 14280 Glacier View exhibited extensive cracking throughout the asphalt surface from previous years. This is evident with the pre-existing crack sealing repairs illustrated in the photos. And so you can see the arrows on the photo on the left. There's a network of cracking across the entirety of the driveway with the silhouette, we call, of previous crack seal underneath the paving seal. It's common maintenance for driveways. Picture on the right, we see the crack that was likely caused by the water flows, but also already has a silhouette of crack seal and repair from previous cracks. A summary review of evidence presented during the appeal to the general manager resulted in the following determinations. Water flows caused by the water main leak on Glacier View Drive likely contributed to the recent heaving and cracking of the driveway along one edge. These cracks were enhanced or exacerbated by the diminished integrity of the paving structure due to previous existing cracks sealed at an earlier point in time. What staff refers to in this is when you have cracking in driveways and apply the crack sealant, it's a pliable, movable material meant to expand with cooling and thawing. The crack itself isn't removed or replaced. It's filled to prevent additional cracking, but the integrity of the asphalt is compromised with those cracks. And then finally, the cracks caused by the excessive water flows were limited to one section or edge of the driveway, and there was no evidence that the water flows caused the remaining network of cracks previously sealed across the remainder of the driveway. So that if we go back to the photos, staff did make a determination that it was highly likely that the water flows from that leak contributed to the cracking on the left side of the driveway, but not any of the other cracks highlighted across the remainder of the driveway. So during the appeal to the general manager, it was discussed, and Mr. Horn expressed a desire for the district to pay in full for the complete replacement of the driveway, including base materials, to their original condition. And so we advised Mr. Horn at that time in the meeting that if the district were to acknowledge responsibility for the damages caused along one edge of the driveway, the reimbursement would be the equivalent of repairing the driveway to its condition at the time of the incident, the time of damage, essentially the time of the main leak. And due to the age and condition of the driveway, the reimbursement would not result in the betterment of the driveway to its condition at original construction. So in recognition of the evidence reviewed, the district denied the claim in part. This is following the appeal to the general manager. So the appeal was denied in part and awarded in part by offering the claimant a choice of one of two remedies. The first being the district would reimburse the property owner or the claimant for the complete cost of labor and materials for the one-time application of crack seal and asphalt sealant performed by a licensed contractor. Or number two, the district would reimburse the claimant for 25% of or $2,500, whichever is less, of the total cost of the removal and replacement of the asphalt driveway by a licensed professional contractor. And these dollar values were based on the submitted estimate for repairs. So 25% or $2,500, whichever was less with the final repair. And this was based on the photo evidence that we saw that the damage contributed by the water flows was less than 25% of the surface area of the driveway. On October 10th of this year, the district received a notice via email from Mr. Horn of his desire to appeal the claim to the Board of Directors at the regularly scheduled meeting on November 5th, this evening. And the district was provided with a packet of summary materials upon which the basis for the appeal would be presented to the board for their review. So at this time, I would pause and offer the opportunity for Mr. Horn to present.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Why do you think it would only be on the side portion? Is there some indication of the water flow and where it was located, or?
Based on Mr. Horn's description of the water flow, the staff wasn't there at the time when we don't have photos or video evidence of the water flows. Based on the description of the water flows that they came in on, looking at this photo here on the left side of the driveway, and then went to the rear of the home. And that's where the actual cracking was limited to that side of the driveway. The network of cracking on the other side of the driveway had already been sealed and remained sealed.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wright. Mr. Horn, the floor is yours.
I'm a PC desktop user, but my Mac Keynote doesn't respond well with the PowerPoint, so I lost some images, or not image, but a thing. But am I able to plug in? I don't
I
know.
have your submitted materials.
Oh,
I
you
can
have the PDF?
I can
Okay.
navigate it for you, or you can navigate. Let me
Cool.
pull it up here.
Whichever is easiest, I can drive it. Yeah, I wish I just sent the PowerPoint. 'Cause okay. So a lot of the first couple are just the first pages are just like what he had said. It went through the whole timeline. So if you skip down to, you'll see the whole timeline. That just lists everything he said. Sorry, it's super small print. Keep going down. Sorry. That one actually, the initial rejection letter stated that it was like the internal code section 7.08.0.10.02 was stated as why it wasn't covered under it. And that clause covers the fixtures and pipes beyond the meter. So this one happened in the street in the main area. So under California Government Code section 835 in Article 1, Section 19 of the California Constitution, it lists that the public agencies are liable when the infrastructure causes foreseeable damage to private property. And then I listed 3 court case evidence, if you keep going down. Sorry. So those are the 3 it's City versus Santa Barbara court. Those are like, basically these are same kind of incidents happen where the case is found in favor of the homeowner for, oddly enough, it was trespass laws for water, but that nonetheless, there's the damage for infrastructure that it was just supporting evidence just to send it. So as we keep coming down, continued. Yep, that's the article section in the California Constitution Code. Keep going down, you're good. That's just saying that this is the initial rejection letter prior. So now we get into inside that code, or the claim denial. Initially, I got that it was beyond control, was part of the reason for being denied initially, but this wasn't an act of God inside the claim denial. It was due to the infrastructure being there since 1972. It was installed, and then in 2007, 2008, just down the street, there was another repair made around the area on the next house down. So it's like just showing further proof that the infrastructure, which obviously in this whole meeting, everyone knows that there's all this happened, but then keep going down. A lot of it's redundant, sorry. Keep going down, you can keep going, next slide. Appeal and response, so that was the initial 25%, and then it was they were trying to equate the typical freeze-thaw cycles in the area surrounding it due to the water leak, but it wasn't just like the cracks, it was actually the heave, and the heave, if we keep going down, I've got tons of photos. You can skip the timeline. So this is just a quick LiDAR scan of the street. The leak source area on the screen left.
If you'd like to use the pointer, you can.
Is it that one?
don't point it in my
I'm sorry. Okay, so leak source area was, the main thing was like there's a manhole around this whole side, and then you can see the easement of the camber of the driveway comes down towards the house, and this is the whole driveway. So everything up here, and then everything, there's actually another leak that they fixed one house over, was just saturated with water to the point where in this area right here, where my water meter is, it was completely full. I threw a sump pump in just because we couldn't see if it was leaking from there or not. And then we eventually found the leaks were like flowing up and out over here and coming down this way. But this area here had 4-inch heave underneath it. And then if you keep going down, there should be a few more LiDAR scans. It's that slide over there. I know it's really bad quality, it's just from a phone, but this is a 4-inch heave underneath, and there was a full stream running down towards the house, and it like the way it goes into, there used to be a propane tank back, I think my grandpa had it moved in like the 90s or so, but it like just sits inside that pool that's right outside the garage area, and that just backs up with water as it came in. And so coming down more, the next slides. So we come into here. This was pre stuff. The freeze thaw cycles, they always say it's like 1 to 2 years you do it. So since I purchased the house from my grandpa, I do personally, I seal it every year, and then the other years, odd years, I have it done just by like elements, and then he would do it prior to that. So he's got his records on my elements that do it, and then I still use his old stuff to seal it. But there, that 2-inch, the middle bottom slide, picture, I mean, that was the main area that he was showing you that he focused on from the photos of the workers. Sorry, I forgot I had this. So this whole section lifted up all the way across that way, which you'll see if you keep coming down. So all the way across there was lifted up. The biggest section obviously was that one over there, but this whole slab lifted up, which meant that now you've got space in between the concrete and the subsurface. So all of that has been degraded essentially, and then the water just constant flows from there is going to pull it out, which is why we start seeing the cracks and the breaks, and there's just no even even ground underneath it. So keep coming down. All these photos just show the cracks going up the driveway from the 27th of January 25 to the 28th of January 25. And then you can see the water even that's coming up and out of those cracks because the storm was coming. So keep going down. More of the cracks, just how big they were. And then the bottom two, I just threw those in as reference because of how far away like the leak could be considered. Like it's only, I did a measurement, but I want to say it was like 30 feet or 25 feet just to that corner of that driveway from that manhole. And it was getting the same type of cracks and heaves that we're seeing on the driveway. So I was just, throwing as like comparisons, like even right near the source, I was seeing the same type of displacement on that asphalt. Keep going down. So the leak got repaired, and then over the coming days, it slowly started to recede, and that's just drawn there. That's the big spot on the bottom right that you start to see the cracks happen. And then as you go down, you'll see it really start to break. You can keep going, the storm arrived. And even after this, the freeze was there. But now we're driving on it, and it starts to break, and it's going to continue breaking as we go. So that whole slab that was lifted is now compromised, and it's not just that one right side. It would literally be that whole thing coming down to the front. Yep, you're good to keep going. So that's what was, I don't remember the date on that one, but that's one, and then keep going down. That was just more evidence of it cracking. The bottom is now actually now they repaved it now, that section, so, but that's what it was at the manhole. Keep coming down. And then this was just recently, and I was just following the new cracks that we're showing. So I had it done by Elements this year again, and then even still, those cracks are coming out. With just having the thick sealant in there, it's still not able to patch those cracks that are now being created, and they're coming down. Keep going. And then that was the night of the 30th because this was due the next day. So sorry, it's not easy to see, but this is how it's got patched up. And then the big area there on the left. Main point is just I don't know what's going to happen this winter with the water movement and the soil under there. So keep going down. Just more photos. This is after the elements professionally sealed. Keep going down. And then that's just photo visual evidence of timeline, like what happened. Keep going down. Statue slide, just saying about like the responsibility can't be on what's it called? The internal code that the Constitution overrides it, blah, blah, blah. Going down. So this is the clause now for the replacements. For one would be for the driveway replacement, then for the subgrade inspection, because even behind the garage raised 4 inches of heave, and then timeline documentation costs contingency just because of now it's being November, going into this having to be done next year. I don't know what the kind of cost is going to be for change. That bid's going to be different. It only was good for whatever the timeline one was on that driveway bid. And then going down, I think, and then that's just it. That's just saying here, will not incur out-of-pocket expenses for the full reimbursement of that thing. And I think the next slide should be, that's more of me just saying, with the years, I did take care of the driveway. I do it every other year. Elements does it every year. It's what I said earlier. And then my grandpa does it, or before he owned the house. Sorry, that's to bring everyone for a bummer, but that's it.
Thank you for bringing all your information. I'm going to open it up to public comment. Is there any public comment on this item of the agenda? And then, you know what, Brian, you look like you might want to have something to say again. Were you finished with what you? I didn't see any public comment, so now I'll throw it back to.
Yes, just administratively closing this up. The fiscal impact associated with this item is not directly known at this time. The final cost associated with this item will be dependent upon the level of responsibility for reimbursement associated with the damage claim as determined by the Board of Directors. Staff's recommendation is to review the details of the appeal to the Board of Directors pertaining to the claim for reimbursement of property damages submitted by Mr. Derek Horn and make a determination as to the district's responsibility for reimbursement of claim damages. I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you have any, I can toggle back to either of the presentations if needed.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And with that, we're bringing it back to the board. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Or, yeah, exactly. Or thoughts on the, not just questions, but thoughts or yeah. Does Director Laliota?
Sure, I'm just curious, how old is the driveway? Is it original to the construction? And the leak area was uphill from the house? Right. So not only water from a water leak, but also water from drainage on the street can also come down towards that direction. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's happened over the years, so
Okay.
nothing to the extent like that. You never get a big pump lifted up, and then even around the house, just on the other side of the driveway, or on the other, around like right around that water area. Like I said, it was 4 inches, and like normally I'll go out there. I have a swing in the back, so like I get to see what it's like with the early stages of snow. You see the dirt lift, but it's nothing that big.
Yeah.
Okay. I have just a couple things, kind of along the lines that what Tony was saying. And do you need him to be at the podium for the microphone, for the record? Okay.
Capturing it? It would help. It would be
Okay,
helpful.
yeah.
But we're capturing it.
So I did a drive-by because I wanted to know. And this is Todd Honor, so lots of snow, lots of beautiful trees, really tall trees there, so a lot of shade, right, in that area. And I did notice that there was repair work. So you said Elements came in and repaired. Yep. So that was evident. And so to Director Laliota's point, there's a lot of, I mean, it could be a lot of drainage because the driveway does go downhill. I mean, it's I should say, not, but it slopes down. And so whatever snowpack from the street, anything is going to come down your driveway or underneath your driveway and to the sides of your driveway, right, because of the slope. And so I did notice that. And then the water cap, whatever it is in the middle of the street, thank you, I don't know the names, is the next neighbor over or beyond? I mean, it was quite a ways. It wasn't directly across your driveway.
It's technically the property line is right there, so the manhole is like 6 or 7 feet into where mine is. But the I did on the initial claim I sent, it was it was referencing other like soil and sediment that were similar to our area and how far that can travel on downhill, and it said within the 100 to 100 something feet of like water is how far you can travel from a source leak. And so the driveway is easily within the range of that. And then couple that with the fact that, yeah, we do have the downhill coming in, which would mean that all that water isn't going to push anywhere else but towards downhill, towards where I'm at. So that whole water, and that was leaking it was I can't remember if I caught it like it was the week before or if it was that week before, because we heard the leak in the house. I thought it was piping in the house that was going wrong, but not to derail too far about but yeah, that manhole is within the range of how far the water would spread over X amount of feet in that type of sediment soil.
And next to your property is an easement?
Yeah,
There's quite a bit of open space that goes downhill also where water would channel.
Yeah, there's like the public utility, not public utility, you guys, that there's like a sewer line that runs down that way too.
Okay, so it's an easement space, it's not your property?
It is, but
Oh.
we can't build on it, is from what I understand, because you can't do anything over it since it's like a sewer line. There's like another manhole in the backyard.
Okay. So there's, so snowpack, just because of the topography, there's a lot of drainage that comes down that way over years and years.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
for sure.
okay. And so those are just kind of my questions there. So, and how old's the home?
It built in 81 or 82.
Okay, that's a lot of years of coming down. And you said it's not the original driveway, but it's the original slope of the driveway?
Yeah, original
Okay.
slope of driveway. That's how it's always been.
Okay.
So.
Let me think if there's anything else there. So it's just since the 80s, this whole drainage path has come down that way, and by some of those pictures of, I don't know what page they were, but some of those pictures kind of showed that there's a history of drainage in that area. It seems like it. I mean,
well,
Because of the slope.
I mean, the slope always goes that way, but usually we don't get like, other than that, there's like that, unworking creek. It's not even a creek. It's just that little, like you said, that like whatever it is, spring thing. But then, all of those are still like my house is lower than those points, so it comes down to that because everything, even like you were saying, like up on the street does come down too. But as you saw in the photos, there wasn't snow there, so it hadn't been for a while, and that one stream that was running up was actually coming up right towards where you saw, like that. You could either go towards that neighbor's house over that easement, but all that water was running down towards my house into that water meter, and then it just continued that, and that was just from where it would pop up there. So it's gonna, it's gonna expand out, especially with all this stuff coming.
Okay. I don't have any other clarifying questions. That's it.
Turn to my right. Director Randall already said no. Director.
I'm trying to look it up on Caltopo,
Mm. I'm not sure that I have any more questions. Director Morrell, you were quite thorough with the sorts of things that came to my mind. Do we have any discussion about where we want to land on this? Like, I feel like it's hard to tease out what was our responsibility, and certainly a leak is our responsibility, and compounding factors of landscape and weather.
Oh, I do have screenshots as well of like of how that storm that followed was because we didn't have like it was like 32 was the lowest we had gotten for the prior 7 days. So even still through those, like yeah, you're getting the freeze thaw, but just the introduction to the extra and the excess really water in the area is what just lifted that whole driveway. So.
I just have a question. If we're going to go into deliberation, do we have to decide if we want to do that in open or closed? Right now? I mean, we're kind of going in that direction,
Yeah,
so are
you're
we
right.
going to stay open or?
It's up to you
Okay.
all to decide whether you want to just continue on in open session and have your discussion and deliberation and make a decision, or whether you want to go into closed session.
And I was going to take the pulse of all the board members on that. I don't have a problem deliberating in the open. But if we have a preference to
I'm
deliberating.
fine for now, but we'll raise my hand if I.
Okay, so you feel.
Once we start, we finish, so.
Well, I mean, it's just a discussion. We're not. Everybody's
Yeah.
looking at me like that's.
Yeah,
how
I
feel.
mean-
But if everybody else feels like you'd prefer to do it in closed session, I am absolutely. It's the board as a whole gets to decide that. So and I said I'm comfortable out here, but
Yeah.
if anybody wants to go into closed session, let us know. Speak up. Speak up.
Got it. Stay open for now for me, but so there was a water leak above elevation wise this property, just to reconfirm,
Staff did confirm our records that there was indeed a water main leak owned by the district on Glacier View Drive at or about the time period noted in the claim.
How did we find the leak? Did somebody call, or did we see it on our?
I called,
You called. Okay. Okay.
We do have records of leak correlation conducted all through Tahoe Donner in previous years, and actually not too far before the leak actually occurred, before the snowfall, we had leak correlations that were done. And, we try to cover large areas of the district each year. It's not uncommon for leaks to develop after those correlation efforts and detection efforts, and then sometimes they surface, sometimes they don't. And particularly in Tahoe Donner, they can travel great lengths through underground channels, or they can surface immediately. And in the wintertime, they're sometimes harder to see because snowpack and snow cover. But staff makes every effort to identify and repair leaks as reasonably quick as possible. And,
We do it all the time.
Sometimes they report it by
Nonstop.
customers, and sometimes we see them ourselves.
Right. Okay. What are we thinking about?
Well, I guess I'll start out, but I think it's pretty clear that there were pre-existing cracks and conditions on this driveway. I think staff feels like perhaps there was an exacerbation of some of these existing failures based on the leak or following the leak. In my opinion, does it rise to the level of a full claim that Mr. Horn has brought forward to us? I don't think so. I think the district has made a good faith effort in negotiating and offering a certain level of contribution to the replacement of the driveway. So I feel that is still valid and should be on the table.
Thank you, Director Laliotis, for your comments.
I'm just going to second what you just said. I agree that there's a longer history there. And again, doing the drive-by and getting a feel for the area, not just your driveway per se, but just the surrounding area also. And I think, that the TDPUD is taking responsibility, for, the leak and damage and making that assessment. And I think that is fair. And so I concur with Tony here.
Yes, Mr. Horn. You don't have to raise your hand, but I appreciate that. Was very
Just for, because
Right.
I know it's easy to see it from the top and just consider about the driveway, but the driveway also consists of everything underneath it too. And if it weren't for that, we wouldn't have those cracks happening. The big lines are consistent with everything that happens, but it never had 2-inch heave like that. And then with those new ones that are kind of spider cracking or spidery webbing out, that means that everything underneath it has been altered. So when the recommendation to restore it to its original state, technically we're not at original state when the subsurface grade of it, that you have to put the rock or whatever they do for the asphalt, and then they put that on top, right? All of that is what's being altered, and that's not seen and not noticed. So over this winter cycle, I think we'll have a better idea of what's going to happen, and if that spidering really continues out is going to, depend on the water movement coming through now from the normal every yearly cycle that's happened, that gets exacerbated by compounded by the now void space that's there. So that's what I'm really that's what I was hoping to try to show today. It wasn't just like the cracks on the surface, it's everything that it takes to build the driveway. So.
Directors to my right, have you any comments?
Yeah, just
or
looking at the
questions?
claim, that's just the asphalt and not replacing the base rock underneath, which is, so.
That was the quote I got. He was going to pull it all out.
The
and
asphalt.
regrade. It was pull the asphalt away and regrade the driveway. Or put the
Base rock down.
Yeah, his recommendation was that if he did the spot, you could do it, but then everything else is just going to settle more into place, and so it's just a temporary fix for something. That's why he gave me that. I can't remember the company.
Truckee Summit Paving.
So
that was they just did my asphalt yesterday.
Yeah, I mean,
It is never ending.
most replacements, if the material is suitable and sufficient depth, the base material underneath, then they'll grade it and throw some in if they have to, but not fully tear it out and replace it. If they find that the subgrade is not suitable, then they would probably come back and go, it's not suitable to reuse any of this material because it's not true base rock. And the same thing is going to happen when you put down 2 or 3 inches of new asphalt. So at that point, they would recommend replacing it. And so that's the other thing we don't know is what was the condition of the existing subbase prior to this issue or under the driveway. No one knows what that's like, and if it's insufficient, that's also exacerbating this problem. But that's what I took from the quote was that it was going to be assessed but not fully remedied if it's insufficient. So there could be additional costs there, but as I said, I don't think the district bears the full responsibility of this driveway replacement. Based on what I've seen, based on the pre-existing cracks and conditions of the thing, did it exacerbate it? Probably. But does it rise to full replacement? As I said before, no, I don't think it does.
Thank you, Director Well, yes, again.
Okay. The district has liability in this. The question is, how much liability? I've replaced driveways before. I've done lots of paving in my prior job. The question then begs itself, how old is the driveway? How much liability does the district actually have? There were prior cracks that were visible, so it shows that it was an aging driveway, and I would accept the recommendation of staff.
Thank you, Director Randall, for your comments.
Do we need to be more specific regarding I thought there were two recommendations, the ceiling reimbursement or the 25% or
Yeah,
20.
choice.
Yeah.
Yes, staff's recommendation is for the board to establish the level of responsibility or liability. What was presented in following the appeal to the general manager were these two options here.
Okay. So Steve, what are you leaning towards of those two options?
Of I could go either way, I think.
Oh, okay.
That would be up to the claimant on which fits, his situation better.
Okay.
Do you have any feelings or thoughts on the Director Bender that we'd like to add or not? It's okay.
It's a tough one, but I do feel that the district has liability and should, at least do this. So.
I want to be clear that the board is not limited to these two options here. This is what the general manager, I just want to make sure that this is what the general manager offered in the partial.
This is what's been offered, right. And I agree, the district does have responsibility. I don't think we are in any way grossly negligent, which was some of the language in the lawsuits that were used. It is what we do. This is interesting timing when we're going to be discussing infrastructure and water rates. This is why. Imagine if.
It's not a lawsuit,
It's a claim. Exactly. No, but he presented
Sample.
supporting lawsuits,
Yeah.
lawsuits that had been decided in favor. That's what I'm referring to. I'm not referring to this claim at the moment. I'm referring to the evidence that you brought to support your claim. But it's hard for me to tease out the extent of the district's responsibility. I'm not a hydrologist or a soils scientist. I think that, again, over the years, we don't know what the condition underneath your driveway was. Was it the last straw? Had it been gradually wearing away? We don't know that. I absolutely admit that the leak probably did exacerbate the condition of the driveway. But as far as parsing out, we were responsible for 100% versus we were responsible for 10%, 20%, 30%, 50%. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
In terms of just not knowing what the underneath was, we have a little bit of an idea just because the cracks we've seen weren't spiderwebby, weren't voids, they weren't holes. So that shows that at least it was somewhat level. The cracks are going to be contraction, expand, or freeze thaw, or cycles.
I feel like, just to sort of reiterate and give an example, I grew up in Florida, and a sinkhole is not a sinkhole. It's gradual, and one day the whole thing collapsed. It's not because there was one event that did that happened over time as water works away at the limestone underneath. So that's what I'm saying, is like over time.
Granite and
Yeah, but your driveway wasn't on granite, otherwise it wouldn't be cracking like this and heaving. That's not, you know, your paving's not on granite, because this wouldn't have happened, I don't think.
Just saying the comparison for Florida soil versus.
Yeah, well, I'm just,
Yeah.
just how water behaves. And I'm unsure of the extent of what the underlayment of the driveway looked like at the time of the event. So I do believe that the PUD has some responsibility here, and that our leak did in fact cause you a problem, an injury. Do I believe that we are responsible 100% to replace an entire driveway? I fall on the Director Moreau and Director Laliotis end of it, where I don't think an entire replacement should be shouldered by, and it's not the whole district, these are all your neighbors and everybody who lives in this community. You know, we all have challenges with our driveways, you know, and that's where I'm going to leave my statements before I just keep going.
So that said, is this a consensus or is it a motion?
So it would require a motion, a formal action by the board to either accept the appeal, and you'd have to decide what that means because of the request that's been made by Mr. Horn, or to reject the appeal and to reaffirm the offer that the general manager made to provide one of the two alternate remedies.
So I'll make a motion, and then we can discuss from there if the board wants to discuss.
Well, let me, just before you do that, Courtney, entertaining the idea of, you know, the 25% or whatever of just maybe 50%.
I would say we can tweak these numbers.
Right. It's just, it's hard to determine, you know, the water leak is above it. It's going to go left. It's going to go right, potentially. I don't, that, you know, it's just hard to see it all. So I don't know, just to.
No, I was going to bring that up too, that we can tweak these, you know, we can discuss these
Numbers.
offers and we can
I don't know.
make
What are the
changes
other
to them.
board members just of that thought? Just, you could give me a thumbs down, or that's just a stupid idea, or.
Well, I think part of that might depend on Mr. Horn as well, if. 'Cause, you know,
So why don't I make a motion, then we can discuss the motion from there. How about that? I mean, then you can, and then we can vote, and if it fails, then we can, you know, something else can go forward. So my motion is to deny the appeal in the full cost of the replacement of the driveway, and to look at the number 2 here, to reimburse the claimant for a quarter, 25% or $2,500, whichever is less, of the total cost of the removal and replacement of the asphalt driveway by a licensed professional contractor based upon the submitted estimate for repairs.
Oh, yeah, no, it's okay. A moment of
It is
silence.
okay.
It's
It is
okay.
okay. We do
That's
need to
the
think
motion.
about it for a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Courtney, you just mentioned in your motion option 2. Does your motion want to, or do you want to amend your motion to either 1 or 2?
So the motion is to deny the appeal of a total replacement of the driveway to what I said here, that the Truckee Donner PUD would reimburse the claimant for 25% or $2,500, whichever is less, and the rest of what I stated. That's the motion.
Okay.
I feel like there was a lot of numbers in that you gave us for the quote for the replacement of your driveway. There were different components.
Underneath, and it was also doing just because the quote has to come from next quote, so I don't know if that quote's going to be. And then it also had just cost of like just preparing this, coming this. There's a lot of research I had to do that I've never known about. So just that direction of time for, and then, yeah.
So I'm not opposed to tweaking those numbers and increasing the reimbursement rate from 25 to another percentage, but certainly with a cap, because it seems.
But there's a motion, there's no second, so we're not discussing
not.
necessarily, okay.
We're still-
So
well,
did
we're
it die,
discussing that- no,
or?
no,
Well, that was my point.
that's
I
part
kind
of
of
it.
wanted to wait. You made a motion for 25%, so I don't want to second that. I'd rather, because the motion needs to be of what's going to be, 'cause if we're going to tweak that, we actually have to have a motion that's actually
Well, it can-
exact, I
That
believe.
motion can die for
Right.
lack of a second.
Right.
Which there
Yeah, I
isn't.
just wanted to discuss more. That's why I'm not seconding, so.
But there's no discussion if if it's not a motion that's viable. See what I mean?
There hasn't been a second, yeah. The Roberts rules are sometimes not adhered to the letter in this board.
So the motion
That's
dies
true.
for lack of a second.
The motion died for lack of a second. So if we want to continue the discussion about what we feel would be as the board.
Well, or ask for another motion.
Oh, okay. So somebody has to define that first. See, I was just gonna, can we not just talk without a motion? Like, can't we?
No, you can't.
Yeah. I mean, well, I
Well,
wanted to
yeah,
discuss
that
the
my point
amounts.
was 50%, because at 25% seems, okay, staff has done their full analysis, and I just,
So
Make the
you-
motion.
You would move to.
well, I wanted to see what the other opinions of the board members
Before we
were.
bother with the motion. Yeah,
Exactly.
You and I are kind of on the same, like, I want to have a little more clarity before I bother with the motion, because I don't want to just keep bringing up motions that die because there's a second with a round of silence, I guess is that how it dies? It dies because nobody says, I second that motion. Okay, see, that's what I've never been in this territory before. Let's bring that motion to the Woodhouse.
All right. I don't quite want to, I don't feel like it's 50%, Jeff. but
Okay.
I don't think it's 25% either. I'm willing to go a little bit higher. So.
This is what I wanted to hear.
That's
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, so
this
Yeah,
is what
no,
it's
no,
doing.
I'm fine, yeah.
Makes
So
sense.
I'll make a motion to deny the appeal and direct staff to offer reimbursement to the claimant of 35% or 3,500, whichever is less of the total cost of removal and replacement of the asphalt driveway by a licensed professional contractor based upon the submitted estimates for repairs.
Lovely motion.
And just for clarity, that doesn't include the option, the first option to pay for the seal coating.
It does not include option.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I wouldn't mind including option one so that Mr. Horn could make a decision between the two reimbursement decisions.
That's fine.
I would amend that motion
Okay,
to
I'll amend the
include-
motion to include item one as, in addition, as presented by staff. So the motion would be items one as presented and item two, increasing the percentage to 35% or the dollar value to 3,500 with the remainder of what's been presented by the staff consistent with the language.
Thank you.
I don't understand the motion because one is full reimbursement and then the other one is partial. Can you
No,
add
one's
some
crack-
clarity,
crack
Brian?
filling.
So the option number one is full reimbursement for sealing, crack sealing, and driveway sealing. The reason why there's two options here, the second option is the partial payment for full replacement of the driveway. Option two would require Mr. Horn to have some financial responsibility in this in terms of replacement. Option one, the district would pay for the full reimbursement, but only for sealing and crack sealing, which would be far less than
And
the
it was just
$2,500.
redone, correct, with elements?
So the sealing has already been done. We'd reimburse Mr. Horn, for that ceiling being done in its full entirety. Or option two would be to contribute partial payment, partial reimbursement for the replacement of the driveway.
35%, and what was your dollar figure?
35 or 35% or 3,500, whichever is less.
I'm good with a little more, so I'll second that.
Does everybody feel like
And a
we
second.
have a motion, we have a second? Does anybody feel like they have to say anything else? Is everybody satisfied with where we have landed? Okay. In which case, all in favor, say aye.
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 No.
All opposed, no. Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you.
And that's it. Thank you, Mr. Horn. It does take some doing to come here in front of us and petition us, so. It's an educational experience, isn't it?
Not the, swayed me, so I did do one of those 175
The timing is, it's really good, but this is why we raise rates sometimes.
Thank you, Mr. Horn.
Thank you. Okay. Well, that was a nice exercise for us. And that brings us to action item, we're not done yet, action item number 15. Consideration for a professional services contract to conduct the district's fiscal year 2025 annual audit. Let's take a 5-minute break. I think everybody deserves a little stretch, a little take a pee, whatever we need to do. I understand, but are we good to come back into,
Yeah, we're good. We
Okay.
had some staff with early appointments tomorrow, so
that's fine. It's above and beyond the call of duty. Okay, item number 15, consideration for a professional services contract to conduct the district's 2025 annual audit. Mr. Salmon, still with us. Thank you
All
for
right.
being so.
I'm back.
You're back. Well, we did consent, yeah. Yep, we're on 15.
15, audit contract. Financial auditors are hired by the board and report to the board. A contract with an audit firm is needed for future annual audits. Historically, by audit year of 2005 through 2010 were performed by Baker Tilly, and 2011 through 2024 were performed by Moss Adams. In 2022, the board renewed Moss Adams' contract for the fiscal year 22, 23, and 24 audits. I won't read these, but Moss Adams is one of the leading firms and has a good, strong utility practice. They include both staff and partner rotations throughout their engagements with us. In April of this year, Moss Adams and Baker Tilly announced a merger. So they're now the same firm. They have chosen to stick with go with the name of Baker Tilly going forward. This is just some stuff from their website. They're excited about the merger, and we are too. This is new. It basically adds resources from just Moss Adams to now Moss Adams and Baker Tilly combined resources. So this is the same thing for now known as Baker Tilly. And as I said, the combined firms just add more resources available to the firm to perform services with us. Baker Tilly has provided a new quote for audit services for fiscal year 25, $58,000, plus a 5% technology fee, plus travel expenses. And they included options to renew in 26 and 27 at $62,000 and $66,000 respectively. Staff recommends extending the existing contract that was Moss Adams is now Baker Tilly. Past performance has been awesome, and we're bullish about the merger. Alternatives for the board include, they're not the only options, but they include extending the Baker Tilly contract for just 1 year. They also, another option would include to distribute a request for proposal for a 3-year audit services. The contract renewal, this is all in, would be $68,000 for fiscal year 25 audit year, 72 for 26, 76 for 27. The budget covers those numbers. There's a lag. The budget in 26 covers the 25 fiscal year audit. The recommendation this evening is for the board president to execute a contract with Baker Tilly to conduct the fiscal year 25 annual audit in an amount not to exceed $70,000 with an option to extend 2 years to fiscal year 26 at $75,000 and fiscal year 27. These are audit years at $80,000 not to exceed amounts. With that, I'll turn it back over to President Finn.
Thank you very much. Do we have any public comment on item number 15? Seeing none. The board, comments, questions?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Why didn't you go out and solicit other bids? Typically, auditing firms in governmental entities are used, 3 to 5 years, not 10 to 15 years. I'm just curious why you didn't get any other proposals.
Yeah, the main reason specifically here that did not happen 3 or 4 months ago was I was busy with an audit, or I'm sorry, with preparing for budget, and just that one slipped by a little bit. But also, we had the merger going on, and I wasn't sure where that was going to land. So, yep.
Okay. So
as far as firm rotations, I would say that some entities rotate every 3 or 4 years, others rotate every 20 or 25 years, and it's everywhere in between. I think with the merger, we essentially accomplish somewhat of a rotation in and of itself. I'm not even sure who would bid, other than certainly some local regional firms would bid, but again, we're talking about the sixth largest firm in the country performing an audit for us that has an extensive utility practice. Changing from something of that level at that price would be difficult to do. In my professional opinion, I've just been doing it about 30 years, plus a little bit.
Me too.
Right. Do we have any other questions or comments from the board? All right.
I'll move staff's recommendation.
Which one?
Right there.
Authorize the board president to execute a contract with the
Yes.
utility? I'll second the motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Hearing none, the motion passes. Okay, that brings us to item number 16 this evening. Consideration of authorizing the general manager to execute the agreement regarding APN number 043-010-005-000.
Okay, I have a real property
You
interest
do.
in
You
this
get to
stuff
recuse
of
yourself.
items 16 and 17. So I am going to recuse myself and leave the room.
And just to be clear, your real property interest is that you have real property within the Grays Crossing subdivision.
And the community facility.
That is part of the
district.
CFD.
Yeah, correct.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Director Bender.
Awesome.
You're excused.
Okay. Come get me after
We'll get you after.
17. Yeah.
Will do.
You're going to recuse yourself on items 16 and
And
17.
17.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a salmon-heavy night.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
My apologies.
We don't have any favorites, so.
So this is action item 17, consideration of authorizing an execution of agreement related to Grace Crossing APN 043-010-005-000. Let's see, the district's legal counsel is Stradling, Yoka, Carlson, and Routh. Gregory Mestry and Allison Burns help us quite a bit with these, with legal matters with respect to the Melrose CFDs and the Melrose bonds. And Gregory is on via Zoom, I hope. He didn't fall asleep on us. But, so we'll check in with him. We should be able to ask him questions. This item should seem familiar because it is similar parcels and similar deals as presented to the board at previous times. I think I'll cover that. Back in 04-05, there was debt issuances on these community facility districts, and special tax bonds were issued. They're called Melrose bonds. The bonds cover public infrastructure improvements, specifically here for the Grace Crossing development, and the Melrose assessment, which is through the property taxes, covers the recovery over the 30 years of the bonds. There's 470 parcels in Grays. The vast majority have continued or paid their special tax assessments. There are 3 undeveloped parcels that are significantly delinquent in both the actual Melrose tax, and then there's been accrued penalties and interest charges. Those 3 parcels are represented on this map. These top left parcel is the second item on the agenda this evening. On the upper left in red, the one in the red on the right is under an existing agreement, separate, not part of this evening's conversations. And then the bottom right is the subject parcel we're talking about in red. So the special tax installments delinquent for the parcel we're talking about for this agreement, this agenda item, is right at $1.4 million. Included beyond the special tax, there's 141,000 and change in penalties and almost 1.8 million in interest that is accumulated in those delinquent taxes, on those delinquent taxes. These parcels are subject to some development hurdles, and there's been various things happening over time that have prevented past development, but there's still opportunity there, and we're optimistic that that will occur. And that, but at this point, the development can't happen on those parcels without settlement of the delinquent tax amount. So they can't move forward without the payment of the delinquent taxes. There is, the current owner of the parcel has found an interested purchaser if the delinquent amount total, including penalties and interest of almost 3.3 million, can be reduced. And we have that, provided that agreement in the staff report. The agreement essentially says if the current owner sells to the developer, the new developer, and the new developer pays at the time of escrow the 1.4 million in back taxes, the CFD will waive the accrued penalties and interest totaling 1.9 million. This is, to the best of our knowledge and with legal's review, they concur that this would be in the best interest of the owners of the bonds and the CFD and the parcel owners in Grace Crossing. It cures the special tax delinquency and facilitates development of the parcel, thereby reducing the likelihood of future special tax assessments. It doesn't guarantee development of the parcel, but it certainly facilitates, right? As part of the board considering this item, we need to ensure that we're in compliance with Government Code Section 53340F, that, again, that it's in the best interest of the CFD, the Community Facilities District of Grace Crossing, to do this, and that the current owner is not inuring, future benefit from this and isn't the brother of the current owner or something like that. I believe Gregory is with us via Zoom. He was earlier. And there's no direct impact to the Truckee Donner electric or water utilities. This is a completely separate entity, but it is, as administrator, we administer it, so that's why we're covering it this evening. This would replenish the reserve balance that continues to be drawn down and is not sufficient, and would lower the accounts receivable. The penalties and interest, because of the amounts involved and the probability of collection, the CFD financials don't have this as a receivable, the penalties and interest. We kind of treat penalties and interest for these three parcels as on a cash basis because the likelihood of collection is so low. So the recommendation this evening is to determine that the waiver of current penalties and interest for this APN agreement complies with the requirements of Government Code Section 53340F, and B, authorize the general manager to execute an agreement accepting on this parcel, accepting full payment for all its installment special tax amounts past due in exchange for waiving current penalties and interest amounts. We have done, these should seem familiar to the board because we have some members of the board, because we have done two other very similar deals for this specific parcel and the next agenda item parcel that fell through. And we're optimistic that this third one will there could have been more deals before my time, but I'm aware of two previous ones specifically for this parcel, and we're optimistic that this one will go through. With that, I turn it back over to President Finn.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Do we have any public comments on this item? Have we received any? Seeing none here. Board, this does feel very familiar to me. It would bring me joy to have this go through.
A couple quick questions. There are only 3 parcels left under this situation, so that we're trying to.
There's only 3 undeveloped parcels that are significantly in arrears, Melrose tax amounts.
Okay.
That's
So
correct.
and one is, nothing is happening on at this point?
2 are tonight
Right.
with this new buyer, the same buyer, both parcels. And then the third is under a current agreement and is well underway with
Okay.
respect to development potential. They're working with the town to get the approvals, and you'll likely see, excuse me, you'll likely see that one come through at the next board meeting with a time extension because they need a little bit more time. But we're optimistic that one is going to be successful.
Are these parcels worth the value of the delinquency that we're proposing?
I'm not at liberty
I mean-
to opine on that. I mean, that's for appraisers and, third parties and developers to figure out, in the market here in the town and its development potential.
Okay,
So
that's
I
fine.
can't speak to that.
I'm done.
Thank you, Director Randall.
I would say that since this is the 3rd attempt, it's probably borderline, would be my opinion on that. But, I'm all for trying to promote the cure of the debt that's owed on these so that the CFD can be replenished, the reserves of the CFD can be replenished. And so, I've been in favor of previous attempts to do this, so I'll stay in favor of this one as well.
Thank you, Director Haliotis. Director Morrell?
Nothing else to add.
Yeah, I feel the same. Maybe 3 times as lucky. Do we have a motion?
I'll move staff's recommendation.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nope. Motion passes. And let's do the same thing. 17, consideration of authorizing the general manager to execute the agreement regarding APN number 019-770002000. Just replay. Did we get that? Oh, there we go. That's the one that we're on now, I believe. Yep, 002. That's the one.
So just point of clarification.
Same.
that The agenda online says we just did number 16, and now we're doing 17. So
Correct.
per the agenda,
So the action item numbers misstated?
according to the agenda online, 16 was what we just did, and 17 would be what's on the board right now.
So this is action item 17. Thank you, Director
Oh, I
Laliotis.
see. Action up. I hadn't even looked at the board. I'm like, what are
I
you
believe the
talking about?
presentations were loaded prior to the agenda being finalized, and I moved Mr. Horn up so he wasn't waiting until the end of the agenda. So
Got it.
that would put Mike's items off.
So this, yeah, it's.
Item 17. APN 019-770-002. This is an agreement for that APN. Same information as previous. So now we're discussing this parcel right here. It's also known as the cottages parcel. It's also got a letter acronym. I don't recall what it is. This one is a larger parcel, so it has, when they're undeveloped, it's based on acreage, and so the special tax installments in arrears are $2,965,488, and including penalties and interest. That total is $4 million. To the best of our knowledge, the waiver of penalties and interest amounts due is in the best interest of the owners of the bonds and the CFD. And this action this evening, if should it complete, would cure the special tax delinquency and facilitates the development of the parcel, thereby reducing the likelihood of future special tax delinquencies. We need to ensure that we're in compliance with Government Code 53340F. That was included in the staff report. And I think council is available. And again, there's no direct financial impact to the Truckee Donner Public Utility District's water or electric utilities. And it replenishes the cash reserve balance. The likelihood of collection penalties and interest is extremely, extremely low. So the recommendation this evening is to determine the waiver of the penalties and interest for APN 019-770-002-000. Agreement complies with the requirements of Government Code Section 53340F, and B, authorize the general manager to execute the agreement for this same APN, accepting full payment of all installment special tax amounts past due in exchange for waiving current penalties and interest amounts. With that, I'll return back to President Finn.
Thank you very much. Do we have any public comments on this item? I see none. Back to the board.
I'll move staff's recommendation.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. We'll bring Director Bender back into the fold.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Salmon. And are you still, are you the next presentation as well?
PCA.
Do you need like a cough drop or something, even a glass of water? Amazing endurance. Actually, I would like water. I'm not even talking the whole time.
My agenda says this is action item 18.
And this is action item number 18. So consideration of approval of a 2025 quarter 3 power cost adjustment of 0.0105 credit per kilowatt hour billed in December 2025, January 2026, and February 2026. So the next 3 months. Here we go. I love this thing.
All right, some great news here. It would have been great to have had this as the first agenda item. So we'll save the best for last. So purchase power, the board has seen this information previous quarters, so I'm going to go quick, it's late. Reiterating, purchase power is a very material component of the budget. As you know, we have a power cost adjustment element that started in 2024, and it's a new line item on your bills. I'm hoping every customer is seeing that because it's a credit most months, and it has been of late. It could be a charge as well, and there is cost variability there. In the ordinance establishing this PCA, it also said that at flux variation levels, flux levels as they're called, greater than 15%, the district's rate reserve is also factored in the ordinance. And we have that in play this evening. We're not alone. This is a history of the PCAs. And you'll see at the bottom, 0.0105 cents per kilowatt hour credit and a $237,900 transfer to rate reserve is recommended this evening. So purchase power costs for the budget for the quarter were $3.886 million. Actual was $2,761,000 for a variance just over $1.1 million, 29%. That variance breaks down to, that 29% breaks down, 7% of that was volume, 22% was the cost per megawatt hour. That 22% was all driven in large part, and particularly by a UAMPS annual operating margin credit of $531,276. Great news. 2.4 times the average. It has consistently, as far back as I can look, been a credit. It could conceptually be a charge, just like the PCA charge could go either way. But this means UAMP's operating costs for their budget year, that for their members, was less than anticipated, and so they're returning this back to their membership. So great news there, and it drives a PCA, a large PCA. The calculation on a cost per megawatt hour, the variance is $21.17. We take off the top the greater than 15%, the 237,900 equates to $237,900, leaving a net PCA of $14.60 to spread over the upcoming 3 billing cycles, $529,000, and then we have a true up from prior quarters of $23,000 favorable, and that totals $552,242. We divide that by our estimated KWH billings for the next 3 months of billing, and that equates to 0.0105 per kilowatt hour, cents per kilowatt hour PCA for December, January, and February. That's about, looking at the quarter retrospectively, it's about a 4% credit. And then looking forward, that's going to take about $7.80 off of each bill in December, January, and February on average, specifically for residential in this case here. Fiscal impact, we have less power costs, so we're returning that back to our customers because we budgeted it, but it didn't happen. And then also includes a credit because of a large amount. We're going to also credit back to the rate reserve, which is great news, bolstering that a little bit. As you know, we had drawn down on it, so we're dabbing back in and getting it real close to what we targeted. So the recommendation is to approve a power cost adjustment for 2025 Q3 of 0.0105 cent credit per kilowatt hour billed in December 2025, January 2026, February 26, and authorize a transfer of $237,900 from the electric operating fund to the electric rate reserve fund. And with that, I turn it back over to President Finn. Thank you.
Thank you very much for everything tonight. Do we have any public comments on this item? Seeing none. Board, any comments or questions? I do. I love this thing. I think the power cost adjustment is an amazing tool that I am really glad we adopted, and I really, protects us when things don't go our way, but returning money to our customers is just a great thing to do when we do. And this is a nice example of how the budget, continues to, it's a living document. We can work with it. So, love the thing. Any other?
No, I just thanks staff, our alignment with UAMPS and staff's hard work on purchase power is, continues to pay off for our customers. So just want to acknowledge everyone's hard work, which leads to this, and funding our rate reserve is a bonus.
I'll make a motion to approve staff's recommendation.
I'll second.
Yay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, yay, the motion passes. And that is the end of our open session this evening. So thank you all for your time and your commitment. Yes,
So
Council Gross.
the board won't be going into closed session under item 19 because that was associated with the appeal. But we will be going into closed session under item 20. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Thank you for getting that on the record for us. And let's retreat. Retreat.